And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, November 10th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Owner's Box. Fun slate, 9 games. We don't have all that much value on the slate, which is causing lots of dudes that you wouldn't normally expect to roster on a 9-game slate to be in lineups. That makes for a pretty fun discussion. It's also going to make for a really interesting night of DFS. If you haven't done it yet, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter, at Josh Engleman and at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Adam, this is a weird one.
It is. I kind of assumed that on a 9-game slate, by the time this show rolled around, we would just have solid value pieces to talk about, but it is ugly. On DraftKings in particular. I did my lineup generator video earlier, and I'm looking at the exposures that are showing up the most amongst the lineups that I picked. And it's just like, I probably wouldn't want this much of this guy. I probably wouldn't want this much of this guy. And then I flipped over to FanDuel and it's just like, oh yeah, I like all of these because their pricing is pretty soft. But man, DraftKings is rough.
Yeah, I like it. It's fun. It's making me look at things that I would like. I'm paying closer attention today because it's not as loose as I was expecting it to be. It's going to be a fun one, I hope. Or an awful one way or the other. There's no middle ground for this. You ready to do this?
Yeah, I already messed up a sim, so I'm trying to figure out what I did.
What else is new? Yeah. Who's the guy that's causing it?
No, nobody. It's like I
thought you were gonna be like, I have 84% Nick Batum. Something's up.
No, not like that. Just like I could tell that what I put together just wasn't right.
Fair enough. I do know it's going to be awful. All right, let's get into it. Philadelphia 76ers, 9.5 point favorites in Detroit, 224 total. For Philadelphia, we don't really have anything to worry about from a news perspective. Nick Batum is probable. He injured his finger the last time out. It says right finger sprain. I was almost positive he broke it, but it doesn't really make much of a difference here. Only guy on either DraftKings or FanDuel that is pulling more than 9% ownership is Tyrese Maxey at 10 on DraftKings. I do think he looks like the best Philadelphia 76er. I currently have 15%. I will always, at this point, be happy to roster Tyrese Maxey. Dude's just good. But I do not have much of this Philadelphia 76ers team in a really nice spot against the Pistons.
Yeah, it is a nice spot against Detroit. I'm with you as far as Maxey looking like a pretty good play at 8,100. No real issues there. Like I said a minute ago, I have a new crunch and everything running right now. And the one I did like an hour ago, I was actually getting a lot of Embiid. That was the guy from the Sixers that I was getting to, which I think it goes without saying I'm happy to do. He's not getting much ownership. I certainly have no issue with the matchup. He's been really good this year. 7% ownership on DraftKings. I was getting around 25%. I'll see where I end up on the one I'm running right now. But it is very, very difficult to get to him. We alluded at the top to the lack of value or at least lack of quality value, and that makes it tough. That's why he's 7% owned. I do think the kind of flip side, the counter argument for getting to him, in addition to just simply Joel Embiid's really, really good, there's not value today that you feel good about. There are a lot of like sub 4K guys that conceivably can get it done. So, obviously whether you land on the right ones or not is the problem. And there's none right now that you look at and go like, oh yeah, this guy looks great. There's no Cameron Payne right now, but there is an abundance where, the field is playing some of them, Teo Maledon, Danilo Gallinari. They're not playing others, Colin Sexton, not sub 4K, but same price range. Bates Diop, there are value pieces where like the opportunity is there. And so when you think about it in these larger field tournaments, there is a decent chance that if somebody like Embiid does put up a massive game, you need him. It's just a matter of, which value pieces actually got there. It's not like there's no viable value plays. It's just there's none that actually look good. So that is something where I think I'm just getting to some low-owned value and hoping for the best and then also getting to Embiid. If that were to go away as we get closer to lock, I wouldn't mind it just because it would probably mean less terrible value pieces. But obviously not going to be upset about getting to him. Maxey at 10% looks fine. We have him going a little bit under-owned at 16%. I think those are the two guys I'd be most likely to get to.
Yeah, I don't have much Embiid right now at 2%. Certainly wouldn't mind any bit of it that showed up. I'm kind of just casting a bit of a wide net across all of the pay up options. Like I've got 8% Luka, a couple shares of Embiid, a couple shares of SGA, a couple of Durant, 7 of Tatum, 6 of LaMelo. Like I just have a smattering of, like one of those dudes is working their way into like half of my lineups. I'm having a hard time saying that I want to get any one of them specifically.
Agreed.
I don't think I have anything else really to add here for Philadelphia. They're just, it's not all that interesting.
No, it's not. I mean, you have a fully healthy team. The prices are correct. They're just one of many teams where, like, if you get to Embiid, great. If you get to Maxey, great. Tobias Harris certainly playable here and there, but there's not one guy that stands out as, underpriced or anything. On the FanDuel side, same thing. D'Anthony Melton getting the most ownership at 9% at 5,200. Embiid's the most expensive guy on the slate on FanDuel.
Pistons side, they kind of look a little bit better. And obviously they have this giant list of dudes that are out: Boyan, Burks, Joe Harris, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Livers, Monty Morris. But 10% ownership to Asar Thompson is the high mark. It's 14 for him on FanDuel, another 14 to Cade on FanDuel. I've got like 5 to 10% of Asar Thompson, Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and Marcus Sasser. But it's like there are no stands for Detroit.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's showing up for me too. In that crunch I ran like an hour ago, I was getting 12% Cade, 12% Thompson, 8% Stewart. I somehow got like 6% Umude, who I assume will go away. But yeah, there's nothing that really stands out. Thompson's getting the most ownership. Small forward, power forward, multi-position eligible is nice. But the price tags here have just adjusted too. I think Jalen Duren, perfectly fine tournament pivot. For example, he's 6,500. Rudy Gobert is, I believe, 6,800 on DraftKings. I think Gobert is getting like 4 times the ownership. Gobert projects better. I would rather play Gobert, all things equal, but certainly could have Duren beat him in any given game. Cunningham certainly gives you a high ceiling, but similar to the Philly side, I don't think there's any real priorities from Detroit.
No. Yep. I don't mind getting any of these dudes that play 30 minutes a night or 30 plus minutes a night, just because they don't have enough other bodies to like make that not be a problem. My only concern is them just being shitty.
That they are.
Speaking of shitty basketball teams, the Washington Wizards are hosting the Charlotte Hornets today. Hornets are 3-point dogs, 239 total. We do have a little bit of love coming into the Hornets side. Reminder, Terry Rozier is out today and probably a little bit for probably another week or two. LaMelo Ball is 14% owned on DK. Gordon Hayward's 11. Teo Maledon is 16. We're going to talk about all. Yeah, Teo Maledon is the highest owned guy on the Hornets. It's a little different on FanDuel, where LaMelo Ball is still 9,100. He is 47% owned there. PJ Washington gets to 26%. Brandon Miller gets to 20. Gordon Hayward gets to 15. But on the DraftKings side, let's start with LaMelo. Price bump up to 10K, still getting 14% ownership. I have no problem getting there. He does look very similar to everybody else that's a pay-up option. So I'm under that 14%, but still looks really nice in this matchup.
Yeah, he looks very good still on DraftKings at 10K. Of the pay-up options right now, excluding tournament considerations and, like the fact, for example, that I was getting a lot of Embiid, I think Ball is the first guy you get to of the 10K plus guys on DraftKings. The playing time has increased in these games without Terry Rozier. He played 36 minutes last game, lost a few minutes in that one, the garbage time. He played 39 minutes the game before that. So the playing time has certainly been there without Rozier. He's a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. You're facing a Washington team that has played at the fastest pace in the NBA while also allowing the second most points per 100 possessions. They can't stop anybody. They run up and down the floor. It sets up amazing for LaMelo Ball. 10K, perfectly fine. 9,100 on FanDuel, completely broken salary. Would obviously be prioritizing him there, and he looks very good on DraftKings too.
How do we want to handle the highest owned guy on the Hornets? Teo Maledon, 3,600, point guard eligible only, 16% owned. We've talked a lot right out of the gate that value is weird today, and this is one of those pieces that are weird. Teo Maledon, just a straight backup for this team, plays about 19 minutes a night, give or take. Hasn't seen anything more than 20.9 in the 7 games that he's played so far. I am just basically picking a different version of Teo Maledon. I understand why he's getting the ownership. I'm just not sure I want to just funnel myself to Teo Maledon.
So the reason this slate is so interesting, really, in tournaments especially, normally when you're thinking about pivots in tournaments and you're trying to find viable alternatives to popular plays, generally you're going to find those in the mid-range and at the top end where a lot of guys look similar, and you're going to end up playing aggressive amounts of the best value plays because you're not going to find good alternatives. Right now, this slate is not like that.
No.
There's all the value plays look pretty equally bad. So it's not that Teo Maledon is a bad play on a slate with no value. He's 3,600. He's in a great game environment. He can certainly pay off that salary. The reason that right now I wouldn't be getting much of him is just that you're still talking about somebody playing like 16, 17, 18 minutes at 3,600. You can find plenty of those guys. The reason that normally you'd be jamming in, in these guys in, like Cameron Payne, for example, is there's no other starting point guard at 3,700 that you're expecting to play, upper 20s in minutes or something like Cameron Payne. But for as long as we have the value we have right now, there's not a big difference in range of outcomes between Teo Maledon and like 20 other guys that are equally not exciting. And he's getting 16% ownership. So like, I get why he's one of the preferred options because he's in this game, but like I can just be different by not playing Teo Maledon. Like, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And that is what I'm doing right now. I have 3% of Maledon. That could change. It could all go away if we get a value play in the next hour and 45 minutes. But yeah, if you just like look through that range of salaries, are you really that confident in Teo Maledon over like Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Like these are just random other bench dudes that exist.
Right.
Colin Sexton is getting ownership at least. So
yeah, it's not that I have a guy in that range that I think is like getting slept on and the best play or anything. It's just if people are going to play Teo Maledon and not play Keon Ellis, I'll just take Keon Ellis and hope he beats Teo Maledon. Same with Keontae George. Same with Keta Bates-Diop, Trendon Watford, Colin Sexton. Like any of these guys, Peyton Pritchard. Like they all suck, but so does Teo Maledon.
Gordon Hayward seems, probably owned right around 10%. I don't have much there. I'm getting a little bit over the field on Mark Williams, but he's only 3% owned. I have 9. I'm not getting a ton of anything from Charlotte, but I don't mind a bunch of bites at the apple because this game is amazing.
Yeah, same page. I'm actually, at least earlier, wasn't getting to Hayward, which is surprising to me. 7,100, relatively expensive, but there should just be so many possessions in this game and such little defense, particularly from the Washington side, that I don't have any issue with that ownership on Hayward. Brandon Miller showing up a little bit for me, shooting guard, small forward at 6,100. It's not outside of LaMelo. I don't think there's like a true priority from Charlotte, but certainly a team where the rest of those pieces are still perfect for just, this is one of my low owned guys. He's playing the Wizards. The sky is the limit.
Ken said Q tag on Hayward. That is not the case. Gordon Hayward is probable for today. Let's go to the Washington end. Wizards. One guy getting a lot of ownership. Another into the double-digit range. Kuzma's 32% owned on FanDuel. 23% owned on DraftKings. We're also seeing Denny get to 13% on DraftKings. Everybody else is in single digits here. Let's start with Kuzma, who at 8K, little sticker shock for an 8K Kuzma when you just think, is Kyle Kuzma an 8K player? But he's been an 8K player this year for sure. This game environment is fantastic. I am getting to that 23% ownership, no problems at all. Looks like a really nice play.
Yeah, same. 32% in the crunch I had done earlier. He's producing 1.37 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. He has a 30.7% usage rate. He's got an 18.5% assist percentage. That's something we'd seen in the past when like Bradley Beal would be out. Kuzma can take on somewhat of a playmaking role, and that contributes to his fantasy value. Rebounding this season, he's at a 13% rebounding percentage. Like he's doing everything and playing solid minutes as well. Washington's been in plenty of blowouts, but this game has a 3-point spread. They're actually favored. So take advantage of Washington playing an equally shitty team, or at least close to equally.
What do we do with the rest of this team? I'm not entirely sure why Denny is just like scooping up a little bit more ownership than other people, but I have 7%. That's my phone ringing. And then everybody's getting like 5. Kispert, Gafford, Gallo, DeLon Wright, Tyus Jones. I've got like a smattering of all of these guys, but Kuzma's the stand and I'm under on Denny.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of Denny this morning, but I'm not now. And I'm with you. Like Denny's been good this year. And I do think it's worth paying attention to because he's always been a solid player where he can kind of just do whatever you need. And on this version of the Wizards, they kind of need everything because they are not very good. So he has put up 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. He's got an 18% assist percentage, which is nice to see. He's got a 19% usage rate, 12.5% rebounding percentage. So you're continuing to see him it's not like he's an elite scorer or a super high usage guy, but he's just doing everything and he's producing. So I think he has earned that salary, even though there is some sticker shock there, but it's not like he's really underpriced. I mean, we have him projected just shy of 30 DraftKings points at $5,900. I think you can find plenty of pivots if you want to, that can certainly beat Benny Obvious. So it's not like he's a bad player or anything, but I do think it's one of the spots where at his current ownership, I don't mind getting away from it a bit.
Do you want to get to anybody else here from Washington?
Not too much. I am interested in Tyus Jones.
Same.
He's getting 4% ownership. I don't have much more than that right now, but he's $5,500. He's about a point per minute guy. He's facing the Hornets. His salary is a little bit deflated because Washington's been in so many blowouts. Like he hasn't played more than 24 minutes more than once in his last 4 games, but they've just been in blowouts where he doesn't play the fourth quarter. One game he did play the fourth quarter and just still didn't play a lot. So like there is some risk there, but 30 plus minutes is certainly on the table for Tyus Jones at no ownership, 5,500 in a game with like a 3,000 point total. I think he's interesting. Like I would kind of like to be getting more than I am.
What do you think? 28 minutes?
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Look, this is a 3-point game. Like by all accounts, you should expect this one to be close in the fourth quarter. And when it is, I expect Tyus Jones to be the closing point guard for the Wizards.
More often than not.
Right. Like I think that's what they want to do. We'll see. I have 8%. He is my second most exposed Wizard, but that is behind Kuzma at 27. So slightly different. I do have Tyus Jones. I have Tyus Jones on Prize Picks for the perfect week this week, man. 7-0 so far.
The perfect. What, he's picking one player?
No, every pick that I've had on Prize Picks that has been graded has won. I hit all 4 on Monday. I posted 2 cards, went 2-0, 2-0. No games on Tuesday, obviously. Went 2-0 on Wednesday. And then I lost. I had Dame in my card yesterday, but my other piece actually won. So I'm pitching for the perfect game this week.
Okay. Who else is on it?
PJ Washington. Over points, rebounds, assists for PJ Washington and Tyus Jones.
Okay.
PJ Washington line moved like the good way for me. So it's worse now than it was when I put the video out. So feeling good. What else did you want to say there about Washington?
That the Jordan Poole price tag on FanDuel is a little bit better than DraftKings.
It is indeed $6,700. It's priced like with his talent level.
Yeah.
I was just kidding.
Also,
it should be $4,700.
So Gallo's ownership has come down. Good to see that. Yeah. He was one of the guys showing up a ton in the lineup generator earlier. I was just like, this is not going to be a thing. Corey Kispert at 4K is certainly just another crappy punt that you can throw in at no ownership and hope that he does something.
All right, folks, 1,500 people in here. We're a little over 100 likes. Hit that thumbs up. Let's run that number a little bit higher. I don't have a stochastic promo for you guys right now, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't still sign up with us. Whether you want the Sims tool, where you can generate a contest of up to 5,000 lineups, simulate them against yourselves, get expected ROI data for lineups and individual players, you can get that. You can get the lineup generator if you want. Adam does a lineup generator video Monday through Friday. If you want to know more about the lineup generator, head to the YouTube channel and check out Adam's videos. Again, they get posted constantly. We have these packages for you: projections, ownership, our boom bust tool telling you, who's looking to go overvalue and undervalue based on certain percentages. All of this stuff exists for the NBA, not to mention NFL, hockey. What else is going on right now? MMA every weekend. I mean, we've got a ton of stuff going on. If you guys want to come,
college football too.
College football, there you go. College basketball is here now too. I think we're doing projections for that a couple nights a week. Just come sign up at Stochastic for whatever you're looking for. Go to stochastic.com. There's a join section on the top left-hand side of the page. If you have more questions about what the Sims tool looks like or a lineup generator, these pages have a ton of detail on it. Read through it. If you have questions, feel free to reach out and let us know because we're happy to help.
So I just got my stuff done.
Okay.
So Kuzma is my highest owned guy from the Washington game, getting around 38%. I like that. Next highest owned guy on DraftKings is LaMelo at 14. I do have 14% Gallo, percent Hayward, just mixing and matching throughout this game. Still under the field on Benny by a lot.
For the Brooklyn Nets, they are 12-point dogs in Boston, 227 total. What is happening here?
I am still getting to a lot of Embiid too, by the way.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So no Nick Claxton, no Ben Simmons, no Cam Thomas. We do have Cam Johnson available back after the first game of the year. 19% ownership coming into Day'Ron Sharpe, which unfortunately I am getting. 8% coming into Bridges, which I'm also getting. Are you getting anything from Brooklyn?
I am getting Trendon Watford, which
okay,
it's in that Gallo bucket of I don't know what to expect here, but we did get a real second half rotation from him last game after Cam Thomas got hurt. Now, obviously, Cameron Johnson being back could be a problem, but no Ben Simmons and no Thomas. There are minutes available here. He's 3,600 on DraftKings. He is power forward only. He's not getting any ownership. So right now I'm getting like 15%, which again, I don't want it as soon as like, if we get any good value opening up, Trendon Watford, Danilo Gallinari, these guys disappear real quick. But
yeah,
right now he's just showing up as there's a lot of volatility here. I'm not confident in what he does, but nobody's playing him. They're playing guys that are just as unappealing. So I will go there. Probably gets garbage time if this game turns into a blowout, which isn't the end of the world. Like it at least gives you another out. That's not the reason you're playing him. You're not saying like, oh, Boston's going to kill Brooklyn. Let me play Trendon Watford, but it's an out. Like even if he's not really in the rotation, you could just run good and get 12 fourth quarter minutes, I guess. But he's really the only guy from Brooklyn that I'm getting. It's a brutal matchup. I have like 4% Sharpe, O'Neal, Bridges. And this is assuming that Sharpe comes off the bench. If he starts, then, obviously he's going to look a little bit different. But last game without Ben Simmons, you still only got like 18 minutes. He's still in a brutal matchup against Boston. He is center only, which is the really difficult part for me, I think. Especially, in my case, I'm getting Embiid a lot. I'm getting some other centers a lot. So it's not really leaving me room for Sharpe. Whereas Trendon Watford, who I think isn't as good a point per minute guy as Sharpe, but he also is cheaper, has power forward eligibility. That's where I'm going. As far as the real players go, like I said, I'm not really getting to any of them. If I were getting to one, I would want it to be Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, same. I have 8% of Bridges. I'm matching the field, but that's all I really have here from Brooklyn. Boston's a little different. We got the news earlier today, no Al Horford. So 19% ownership coming to a $5,700 Derek White. 18 coming into Drew Holiday. I'm matching both of those, but I also have 11 of Jaylen Brown, 7 of Jason Tatum, and 7 of Kristaps Porzingis. In particular, I don't mind that Jaylen Brown price tag. I'm happy to have some of Boston. Hope it stays mildly close.
Yeah, same here. I'm a little under the field on Derek White, getting 12% though, so no real problem. We have him with a 12% chance of being optimal, so pretty happy with where that landed for me. I'm not getting to as much Drew, but I still have like 10%. So the two guys that are getting the most ownership, I'm getting them, just not quite as much as the field, but nothing too crazy there. I'm with you on Jaylen Brown, 3% ownership. I have 12%. I really like that. I've talked about him a lot this year. Shooting guard, small forward, 7,800 on DraftKings. He's just in a position where his median projection isn't that appealing for his salary, but there are enough times where Jaylen Brown ends up being the alpha on offense for that game. And when that happens, he is wildly underpriced. Like the average, Jaylen Brown's average projection, he should probably be, 7,200, 7,300. But when you get the game where Jaylen Brown is taking over the offense, he should be like 9K. Mm-hmm. And so when he's 3% owned at 7,800, it becomes appealing to just say like, okay, well, I hope this is a Jaylen Brown game. And, know that especially with the shooting guard small forward eligibility as well. So I do like getting there. I'm getting to some Peyton Pritchard at 3,800. Again, the rationale there is simply he is not Theo Maledon. And that's pretty much all there is to that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I got a little bit of like all of the 5 best guys for Boston, and I don't have anybody else. That works for me. 7% Jason Tatum. If you're going to have a day, don't be afraid for it to be today if you really are 2% owned.
The answer to why Adam looks so young is probably Adam doesn't have a beard.
There you go. The New Orleans Pelicans, Herb Jones, questionable. We did get the news that Najee Marshall is out. Zion Williamson is available. So we are getting Ingram and Zion for this one. 9% ownership to Jordan Hawkins is the high mark. He is a little bit more owned on FanDuel where he's 4,700. He's 47% owned there. 28% ownership coming into an 8K Zion on FanDuel as well. I don't have much of this team on DraftKings. 12% of Hawkins, which I hate. 9% of Dyson Daniels, which I also don't love, but it is happening.
Yeah, I'm not getting to much of this team either. 14% Hawkins, so a little over the field. 5,600 on DraftKings. He is a much better play and a much more popular play on FanDuel, where he's like $900 less expensive. But on DraftKings at 5,600, you're at a price point now where he doesn't look great from a projection standpoint, but that ceiling is still there. I mean, as bad as he's been as massive chalk in a couple of games recently, he has also shown you the upside to absolutely destroy a $5,600 price tag. So I do like that he's only getting about 9% ownership. He is relatively inexpensive with multi-position eligibility. Perfectly happy to be a little bit over the field there. That's really the only guy from the Pels I'm getting to. I have 2% Brandon Ingram right now, and that is it. Zion's back. That, hurts Joval in a couple of different ways. So yeah, to me, Hawkins is the top guy from the Pels, as painful as that is to say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. It's not fun, man. It's not fun. So hopefully today's the day. Oh, honestly, I don't know. I have 12%, so it's not a big enough stand where I want him to go out there and shoot 40 times like he has done on the days where I don't have him. But
right, yeah, I have 14%. So like, I don't want this to be you have to have Jordan Hawkins to win, but I will take it being a Jordan Hawkins did perfectly fine day.
Yeah,
I'd like him to not score like 9 fantasy points.
Houston is a very different side. 15% ownership coming into Alperen Şengün, and we don't even know if he's playing. He is questionable. 15% coming into Van Vliet. 17 to a $3,600 Jae'Sean Tate. 16 to Jalen Green, who I think might be my favorite tournament play of the day. But I'm getting Şengün neutrally to the field. Van Vliet as well. I have 23% Jalen Green. I'm still getting Tate, Smith, Brooks. I love Houston today.
Yeah, I'm getting to them across the board. The only guy I'm getting above the field on right now is Şengün at 7,700. Clearly, he's questionable. If he doesn't play, that changes a lot. Probably opens up value in Landale, but he was out of the rotation last game, so maybe not. We'll see.
Hopefully, it's Jeff Green, honestly, because at least he has power forward eligibility too.
I would much rather. I don't want to deal with Jeff Green. Like I would.
I would rather play Jock Landale starting, but like at least Jeff Green really opens things up with another position.
Right, but I'm saying if Jeff Green starts, it's like, do I want to play Jeff Green? If Landale starts, like I'm just jamming in Landale and I don't have to think about
it. Yeah. Should be fun.
But yeah, Şengün, if he's in, looks very good at 7,700. 15% owned. He's one of the centers that is showing up a ton for me right now. And again, if he's out, then obviously I'll be swapping that to somebody else.
Yeah, Jalen Green, fantasy point per minute, 6,300, shooting guard eligibility. For some reason, he's just the guy that's standing out for me today, and I am like super cool with it.
Have you looked at Houston's per minute rates this year?
What, like individual players?
Yeah.
I have every single one of them in front of me.
They're just all like 0.9 to 1, and then Şengün is 1.3.
Yeah. Van Vliet, 1.04. Jabari, 0.93. Tate, 0.9. Jalen Green, 0.99. Jeff Green, 0.9. It's just a sea of it.
And I didn't specifically mention Tate, but 3,600 shooting guard, small forward. Of the like sub 4K guys getting ownership, I think Jae'Sean Tate makes the most sense. Yeah. Shooting guard, small forward is nice. He played 27 minutes last game. You should be expecting, 21, 22, 23, somewhere in there. But nice to know he at least could play more. He's always nice too, because like if anybody gets in foul trouble, Jae'Sean Tate can fit into the lineup and help out. Yeah. I'm getting like 10% right now, so a little below the field. But of the random cheap pieces getting ownership, he does make more sense than like anybody to me.
No disagreements.
I'm like Utah Dylan Brooks, who's getting 4% ownership. But
yeah, I have 9. I'm okay with it. He's been good for them so far this season. He's
DraftKings points per minute and playing big minutes.
He's holding himself in check, like he's just not letting it sail like he normally does. Which I bet Memphis is just like, yo, man, why didn't you do that shit while you were here? Right. He'd still be in Memphis. Honestly, like if he didn't shoot as much, he'd probably still be in Memphis.
I wonder how much of it is just a Fred VanVleet versus John Morant thing.
Probably doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, just from like a leadership standpoint. Not even, and I don't even mean that as a knock on Ja, because like I hate when people just assume they know like what these guys are like in the locker room and stuff.
Yeah, by all accounts, everybody loves Ja.
Right, but I'm saying from like I would love Ja too if we're hanging out. I don't know if I would like him, like how much I would respect him as a teammate. Like it's.
I might respect him more as a teammate and not really want to hang out with him.
True. But my point being, like I don't mean it as a knock on job because I have no idea what he's like, but like Van Vliet is kind of just that guy.
He's an adult in the room.
Right.
Yeah. Utah Jazz, 5-point dogs in Memphis, former Dylan Brooks home, 229 total. Only one guy on the DraftKings side is in double digits of ownership. That is Jordan Clarkson at 16%, which I am matching. Keontae George and Colin Sexton are both at 9. What is this slate? It's a little different on FanDuel. 34% ownership coming into Kelly Olynyk at 4,400. 22% still to Keontae George at 4,300 there. What do you like here from Utah?
What do I like, or what am I getting to? Because those are
go both directions.
Yeah, kind of different questions, but right now I am getting to like 20% Keontae George, or sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. That was my old one. In the one I just ran, I am getting to 20% Keontae George, so that didn't change. I don't like it, but he's still pretty cheap at 4,700. He's getting 9% ownership. You know, he's gonna be half his own as Teo Maladon. I get it's not the same price, but you can still, it still works as a value piece. I'm gonna just get there. It looks like I'm getting to Colin Sexton at 8%, which is pretty much in line with the field at 3,700. Those are my two highest owned guys from Utah. I've 6% Markkanen and Clarkson. I think Clarkson is the guy that I would want the most, but the field's there too at 16%.
Yeah, I'm getting there. 18%.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit under
Clarkson.
That's one where I wouldn't be surprised if I just end up getting around the field by the time we get to lock. It looks like a good play to me. I don't have any issue with the ownership. I just don't quite have it.
All right. Yeah, I got 10% of Markkanen too. That got me to double digits, which I'm totally cool with, especially if he's going to be a stretch 5 here.
Yeah, and I mean, John Collins at 6,500, power forward eligible, 4% owned. I'm not getting much, but certainly a good contrarian play.
Yep. All right, let's bounce on over to the Memphis Grizzlies then. This is a spot where we're getting a bunch of ownership, and I don't know how to get away from it. 23% to Biyombo, 24% to Desmond Bane, 26% to Jaren Jackson, who is my number one contender for today. Double digits to Luke Kennard and Marcus Smart. No reason you can't get to Santi Aldama or Zaire Williams, but there are 3 priorities for Memphis, and I completely agree with the ownership.
Yeah, I think this is the first team where they're getting a lot of ownership, and I'm also getting to not only that team, but the same guys. If the slate started right now, I would have 46% Desmond Bane, so I'd be about 2x. I would have 24% Jaren Jackson, so about the same as the field. I'd have 42% Biyombo, so like 2x there. 4,900 on Biyombo. Obviously not the most exciting center, but he's the starting center. He's not a terrible point per minute guy. He's probably playing upper 20s. If you're lucky, maybe he gets into the low 30s. But at 4,900, he just is going to look pretty good there, especially like in my case, where I'm not really playing there on Sharp. So I need that price point. I don't really have Sharp. I'm getting more Biyombo. Makes sense to me. Marcus Smart, Field's getting to 12%. I'm only getting to 6%, but no like strong take there or anything. I think he's pretty much correctly priced. The Grizzlies just look really, really good in this spot.
Yeah. 8,300 power forward center for Triple J. That will work for me for sure. I'm not all that worried about the Utah offense, so I'm hoping he can just hang out there. Rookie point guard, maybe that's a good thing for Jaren Jackson. Not ready for all the tricks of the reigning defensive player of the year.
Yeah. 1.22 DraftKings points per minute so far this year for both Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm getting to 20% Luke Kennard.
Yeah.
Who is
I have 15.
Owned. What you said you have 18?
15.
Yeah, 4,300 shooting guard. So kind of similar to Keontae George in that, he's more expensive than Jayshawn Tate and Teo Maladon, but not that much more. It's not making that much of a difference in my lineups. And he's just lower owned and better.
Anybody else we need to touch on here for Memphis?
I don't think so. My Santi Aldama problem went away.
Okay, that's good. I mean, well, that's not necessarily good. I mean, he's a solid enough play today.
Yeah, I mean, I have 4%. He's 5% owned. This morning, I had like 40%.
Folks, you see the banner at the top of the screen. Owner's Box is the sponsor of this show. And I got a very specific thing to talk about for today. This is why it's important. You should sign up for Owner's Box tonight. Link in the description of this video. You'll probably see it in chat as well. If you sign up for Owner's Box using these links with the stochastic referral code before 7:30 lock tonight, deposit any amount, you get 2 free $15 tickets automatically applied to your account. It's instantaneous. Owner's Box bumped lock from 7 o'clock to 7:30. So you don't have to worry about those 2 7 o'clock games. They are starting a 7-game slate at 7:30. Live Before Lock show will be running you guys long all the way until the lock of Owner's Box. So you're going to get 6 to 7:30 for Live Before Lock, taking you up to that Owner's Box lock as well. Sign up using this link. Get yourself 2 free $15 tickets. Get into their main contest. This is a perfect night to do it. No reason to sit around. If you were looking to play anyway, Owner's Box is making it easy, and you're getting 2 tickets to their flagship contest for the night. Link in chat or the description. Sign up now. Love you guys, Owner's Box. Thank you, Owner's Box, for the $500 in Owner's Bucks that I was able to clear over the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. Everybody likes free money. I tell you guys this for basically every read that we do. I take advantage of it. I do the things that I'm saying. You guys should do that stuff too. Minnesota Timberwolves, 7-point favorites in San Antonio, 225 total. For Mini, nothing on the injury report that we have to worry about. Lots of ownership coming in here. Now, this one I actually hate, but I understand why it's happening. 26% coming into Kyle Anderson, 29 to Mike Conley, 18 to Naz Reid, and 30 to Rudy Gobert. Now, I don't think some of those numbers are all that crazy, but I am under the field on 3 of those dudes. I'm not under on Kyle Anderson, and I hate it so much.
I'm under on every guy that is getting ownership, and I'm over on Anthony Edwards. Which
I'm over on McDaniels.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, me too, I guess technically. But Gobert is my highest owned guy from Minnesota. He's getting 30% ownership. I have 20%. Really, really good spot against San Antonio, one of the faster teams in the league. Gobert just is underpriced at 6,800, but there are still plenty of center alternatives. Like I said, he's getting twice the ownership of Şengün, $900 less. But basically, I'm playing Şengün like the way the field is playing Gobert, and then I'm playing Gobert the way the field's playing Şengün. I like that. Conley getting 29% at 4,800. I'm getting like 16%. He's a good value play. He's still a guy that gets like 0.85 DraftKings points per minute with a 12% usage rate, being rostered by nearly 1/3 of the field. Good play, but not the kind of guy that I'm super scared of getting away from in a 30,000 person, 100K to first tournament where I'm trying to win. Naz Reid, 5K, 18% owned. I'm getting like 6%. He's a good play. Projects for 5X. He will play more minutes if either of Towns or Gobert were to get in foul trouble. He's a very good point per minute guy. Anderson at 4,600. I'm getting 8%. He's 26%.
I'm jealous.
It's another good value play, probably playing 25, 26 minutes in a really good matchup. The only reason I'm not getting to these guys as much is just the ownership is so aggressive here that, it is a 9-game slate. There are plenty of other guys that have similar ranges of outcomes. I am getting the 10% Anthony Edwards. He's projected for 5%. I love being over the field there. Shooting guard, small forward, 9K, great matchup. Ceiling is very, very high for him, and he's very low on.
So we're basically on the same page here, other than the fact that I am neutral to Kyle Anderson. I'm half the field of Mike Conley. I'm at 11% of Naz Reid. I'm half the field on Gobert. I have 15. He's 30. But I did get 13% of Jaden McDaniels. If I'm going to get somebody, the lowest owned dude from Minnesota, happy to do that. I didn't get to Edwards, unfortunately. I do have 9% of Towns. But this one right now is going to just be where I'm going to have all of these Minnesota dudes that do look like solid plays. But if those ownership numbers hold in that 25 to 30% range, I'm going to be coming in under those marks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I am as well. Like, I'm not just not playing these guys. They're good plays. And I don't even want it to sound like if you play a lot of them, it's like a bad play or something. If you play a lot of them, you should just be playing less of some other popular guys. But the way, like when we talk about exposures, essentially all it's saying is we built a bunch of lineups. And then when we sorted those lineups, however we do it, whether it's using Sims, whether it's using Excel, however you're choosing those lineups, when you're essentially in some way factoring in, I want lineups that project as well as I can get while also not being that popular. And you start comparing them to all of your lineup choices. We just both sort of ended up getting less of Minnesota than the field because of how popular they are.
Going to be interesting. Minnesota's going to be an interesting team to look at after the night is over, assuming no major changes, looking at Minnesota's ownership for 150 maxers in comparison to non-150 maxers, I think is going to be stark.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see a lot of 150 maxers in the same range as us.
Yeah, same.
The problem then becomes, does the ownership actually come in at 2/3 of what it's projected for?
Right. Like
there's a chance that we get to the slate and it's like, oh, Gobert's 20% owned. I wish I had 30% instead of vice versa.
Yep. I don't even want. I don't think I could talk about San Antonio right now. So the Spurs have the highest owned guy on the team at 8%, Charles Bassey, and I have 11. And I really, really, really need this to go away. I don't know what the path to victory is here.
The game ends halfway through the third quarter and he plays the last 16 minutes.
I hope so. I understand the logistics behind what's happening. I also have him projected for 14 minutes and 15 fantasy points, and yet this dude is still in my lineups.
Yeah, I don't have any. Like, I get the 8% ownership. I sort of get whatever you're doing. I don't have him. I'm perfectly fine not having him. But
yeah,
like he should be like 3,700 instead of 3,100, whatever.
I wish he was.
Right. Zach Collins is the guy I'm getting the most of. I'm getting 8%, so I'm 2x the field there. Nothing stands out from San Antonio. Most of their pricing is pretty much correct. 2% owned Trey Jones is 5,200. I'm getting like 6%. So I don't mind taking some shots at them here and there, but it's very much a like, I have 4 or 5 popular players in this lineup. Let me get Zach Collins. I have 5 popular guys here. Let me get Trey Jones. There's nothing about these guys that stands out other than their ownership.
Who is your Bassey right now? Who do you have 10% of that you don't want?
Hang on, let me get back to my total. I mean, we already talked about Keontae George and Trendon Watford.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, Trendon Watford, I guess, is kind of my Bassey, except at least he's not a center.
Yeah, that helps.
Peyton Pritchard, Keon Ellis.
Yeah, we'll get to Ellis in a bit.
Terrence Mann.
I don't even know what to do here. Like, it feels so incorrect to play Charles Bassey. But then fucking Zach Collins is going to like sprain his ankle and Bassey's going to play 21 minutes or something like that. And it's just like, oh, that's how it happens.
So that's kind of what I was going to say was Bassey is fine as long as you think he's getting the bulk of the minutes if something happens to Zach Collins. The problem is if something happens to Zach Collins, do we start getting more wing minutes for guys with Wemby at the 5?
They can bring in Mamukulishvili instead too. Dominic Barlow. There's no telling. There's no telling. I have no concept of what they'll do here.
Yeah, but like what I'm getting at is Bassey at 3,100. The potential problem with Bassey at 3,100 is that he projects for 5x, so he's showing up in optimized lineups. But 5x at 3,100 is absolutely like useless. You really probably need him to double his projection to be somebody that like you need. If you can argue at 3,100 if he gets like 24 points, you're happy. But like really to like you have to have Charles Bassey, you probably need him to literally double his projection. So there needs to be a way for him to double his projection. And that's my question is like, if the way he would double it is Zach Collins foul trouble, but is he actually getting all of those minutes or is he just going to play pretty normal minutes and they're just going to go to other guys?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. LA Clippers, 1-point dogs in Dallas, 237 total. This one, at least on the DK side, I don't really know how you prioritize anything. FanDuel's got Harden, 7,700, 18% owned. Kawhi's 16% owned. Paul George is 11. I have 9% of Terrence Mann, who is basically my Teo Maledon in this conversation. That's the most I have of anybody from the Clippers.
Yeah, it's still a pretty unappealing team to get to. The pricing on FanDuel for them is a little bit more favorable than DraftKings. It is dropping on DraftKings. So I have 10% Kawhi at 8,300. He's 6% or 7% owned. I like the $8,300 price tag. It's Kawhi Leonard. I don't mind being there. Terrence Mann getting 2% ownership at 3,500. I have 8%. Certainly not confident in his playing time at all, but he is small forward, power forward at 3,500. So he's showing up a little bit for me. Norman Powell's showing up like 6%. Zubac's in the same range, but the only guy that I think I'm getting to that's really worth mentioning is Kawhi. And even that, I'm getting like 10%.
Look, I think it's possible that Terrence Mann can play 25 minutes today if he just takes the other 5.8 minutes that Bones Highland played in the last game. I have him in for 21. If he was able to play 19 and a half his first game back, I don't expect that number to go down for any reason other than injury. So I'm hoping Terrence Mann is just a better version of Theo Maledon. And based on the ownership right now, I'm very happy with that decision.
Yeah, same here. And he does have better positions too. And I think you made a good point there about his minutes. It's sort of the Jaden McDaniels thing where Terrence Mann is a legit part of the Clippers rotation. This isn't somebody where he's going to play 20 minutes his first game back, and then they're going to be like, we don't really want Terrence Mann today. He plays 12. This is a legit guy in their rotation that his minutes really should only be going up.
He should become a starter. He was supposed to be a starter for day one if he wasn't injured. Obviously, the team looks a little bit different right now, but I mean,
this is the guy that they refused to trade for James Harden.
Yeah. I think Bones Highland's minutes go away. I'm hoping Terrence Mann gets them. The only problem for Terrence Mann is that he's not a great per minute dude. He's 0.8. I need him to play. And there's not a lot to go around now with who they have on the team. Dallas Mavericks on the opposite side. Highest owned dude on the team is 9% owned Derek Jones Jr. There's 6% going to Hardaway, 5 to Luka. I have 8. I have 7 of Kyrie. I have 21 of Derek Jones Jr. right now. I don't mind that so much because if we look at the Dallas injury report right now, Maxi Kleber is doubtful. Derek Lively is questionable. There is a very realistic possibility that Derek Jones Jr. just plays 29 minutes today. And that'll work 4K small forward, power forward.
Yeah, we saw that last game. I'm not getting to Derek Jones Jr. right now, at least at 4K. I'm getting to Grant Williams at 4,700. So basically the same play, just different name, a little bit more expensive. I have 20% Grant Williams right now. That would certainly count as one of my Charles Bassey type plays that I do not want any part of this, but sure. I get why he's showing up. There's a lot of ways for him to get more minutes. If Lively is out, those minutes look even better. But even if Lively's in, you should still get enough minutes for Williams to at least have a chance here.
Yeah. You getting Jones?
No, which surprises me because I feel like I should be getting some, but I'm not.
Okay.
Actually makes me wonder if I have a naming issue.
That's a good point. Do you have straight 0?
I don't have him. I have 0 Derek Jones lineups. I do not have a naming issue though, so I just don't have him.
I thought this was going to be the same thing as my PJ Washington bullshit from whatever that was yesterday or 2 days ago. Yeah, if we don't get Lively, I mean, if we don't get Lively, we're going to be getting to Dwight Powell, right? A little bit more than we are.
Yeah, 4,100. Some of that Biyombo, 40% Biyombo that I have can turn into $4,100 Dwight Powell if Lively's out.
That could be I can get rid of some of that Day'Ron Sharp that I have for some Dwight Powell, which would help. But I'd feel a lot better about Derek Jones if we find out that Derek Lively's not playing. Anthony Peters with the super chat said, I'm getting to tons of Harden. Thoughts? Just joined. Doesn't sound great to me. I mean, it's James Harden, so right. I don't think it's craziness. But
right, I was going to say it's not there's a lot of times people say I'm getting to this guy, and it's just how the hell are you doing that? Let me give
a caveat here. I don't know if he means DraftKings or FanDuel. He's 18% owned on FanDuel at 7,700. That is an actual not crazy play then.
Yeah, I was going to say the Clippers in general look better on FanDuel. Kawhi 8,100, George 82, Harden 77. If you're talking FanDuel, looks good. DraftKings is more so saying it's James Harden. He's 4% owned. He's 8,200. Obviously, he can go for 50, but DraftKings is much more difficult to really be confident in playing a lot of him than FanDuel.
All right, guys, don't forget NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. They're going to take you all the way until 7, and you get the bonus 30 minutes so that you guys can get into that owner's box contest. So get ready. They'll be here after we finish these next 2 games. The Los Angeles Lakers are 2.5-point dogs in Phoenix, 224 total. Surprisingly, we got the news earlier. Anthony Davis and Jackson Hayes are both probable. We don't have to wait on that at all, which also makes the Lakers...
until they rule them out.
Also true. It also makes the Lakers pretty uninteresting. Highest owned dude is D'Angelo Russell at 4%. I have 8 got a little bit of Austin Reeves. I don't have more than 8% of Russell, though. Just don't have much of the Lakers.
Yeah, I have 14% Russell. That's the only guy I'm really getting to at all. 4% Taurean Prince at 4,200. The Russell play at 6,500. I think it's just ownership. He's 4% owned. Marcus Smart in that price range is getting like 3 times the ownership. Drew Holiday is getting a bunch more ownership. So I think D'Angelo Russell is just showing up as my pivot to those guys. So I have him basically at the same level that the field is getting to like Drew and Smart, which looks good to me. I think I had 6% Smart. So basically just flipped Russell and Smart. I like that.
No AD for me, 1 share of LeBron. Like, I just don't have this team at all. I got 6% of Reeves, shooting guard, small forward, but I don't think it looks great.
Yeah, that could easily just disappear.
Yeah. Just a very underwhelming team to look at today.
Yep.
And somehow they're not even the most underwhelming team to look at in this game. Highest owned dude on DK for Phoenix is 4% owned Yusuf Nurkic. It's 6% owned Kevin Durant on FanDuel if you want to see that go a little bit higher. I basically don't have this team. Couple shares of Keita Bates-Diop, Kevin Durant, and 2 shares of Yuta Watanabe.
The only guy that I have in a single lineup right now is Keita Bates-Diop, and it is not very many single lineups.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of Lakers Phoenix having none of it. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm supposed to be getting here. Like, Bradley Beal played 23.5 minutes on the 8th. I gave him 27 for today. Could he have a decent day at 7K? Sure. Could he play more minutes than that? Sure. I have no confidence in anything here for Phoenix.
Yeah, same boat. Like, there's tons of good players in this game, but the pricing is just pretty much overpriced or where it should be. Nurkic at 6,900, if you wanted to use him as a pivot to, say, Rudy Gobert, fine. But, like, Gobert's spot obviously is better. He projects a lot better. But Nurkic, at least is capable of having a big game. But with Beal being back, not playing enough minutes that you really want him at 7K, but playing enough minutes that he is going to cut into everybody else's production, it just makes it tough to get to Phoenix.
2,300 people in here right now, 302 likes. Let's see if we can get up to 400 before we turn this one over to NBA Live before lock. As we close it out, final game of the night, Oklahoma City Thunder, 1.5-point favorites in Sacramento, 231 total. Maybe this is the most unappealing team to get to, even though I'd really like to have Chet or Jalen Williams or Shea, because I like those 3 guys a lot. 2% owned Dort or Shea. That's the high mark on DK for today. I can't imagine having a bunch of Oklahoma City.
I have 4% Dort. That is the extent of my Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I don't think Chet looks like that. Like, Chet seems properly priced. Jalen Williams seems properly priced. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a lot at 10.5, but like, he doesn't look any different than all the other guys around him.
Right. Like, I love the idea of turning 20% owned LaMelo into 1% owned SGA.
Yeah.
But it's not happening for me right now. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of building a lineup and you were thinking about it, click SGA. It's a really good play, really good pivot. But
great matchup.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's a great matchup, but it's not Washington, and he's $500 more. But yeah, I mean, SGA is. I would love to have SGA. I just don't.
Damn. I love this Oklahoma City team. I'm so pumped for them. Ownership is coming into Sacramento, though. This is where we're going to finish it off. 15% to Monk, 17 to Kevin Huerter, who I think we both probably think is the best option here from Sacramento.
That's an
10 to Keegan Murray, basically 0 to Keon Ellis, who we will talk about in a slightly different note. Sabonis is really unowned. Talk to me about Kevin Huerter.
I have a lot. I have 36% Huerter, 5,400 shooting guard eligible. I've said it every time the Kings have played, I think, since Fox got hurt. Huerter is at least capable of taking on some of the things that De'Aaron Fox does on the floor. Now, obviously, I'm not comparing him to De'Aaron Fox as a point guard, but like, you don't have a lot of guys on Sacramento that can fill in as a playmaker, as a scorer. Like, that's not Davion Fox. That's not Keon Ellis. So you can just see more from Huerter. He's at 0.91 DraftKings points per minute without Fox on the floor this year. And the big thing, because we're talking DFS, is that his salary just isn't really moving. He's still sitting there at $5,400. If he plays well, he can get plenty of minutes. He played 34 in regulation last game, 39 including overtime. We've talked a lot about the Kings closing lineup. It's essentially Domantas Sabonis, usually Keegan Murray, usually Harrison Barnes, and then whoever's playing well out of Ellis, Mitchell, Herter, Monk as your final two guys. So there is clearly a path to Herter playing low to mid 30s at 5,400. Good price tag. Just getting to him quite a bit. I'm not getting to a ton else. I have 12% key on Ellis, who's projected for no ownership.
Yeah.
He started last game in place of Davion Mitchell. He didn't close. He played 21 minutes. He is not a good play. He's just another guard in the Teo Maledon price range that is not named Teo Maledon. And that is enough to get him into lineups right now. Would not be upset whatsoever if I just end up not getting there. Obviously, if he goes back to the bench, then I'm not getting there either. But assuming Keon Ellis is starting, I'm just mixing him in a little bit because of the lack of ownership. Harrison Barnes showing up around 8%. He's not getting any ownership at 5,200. So I don't mind taking some stabs at him. But Herter is the only guy that I'm getting a lot of from Sacramento.
I have 14% of Ellis, like we talked about. I'm more than okay with that number based on the other people that are getting ownership in that range. Non-zero chance that he plays if Oklahoma City kicks the shit out of him.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't know if that happens. It's not changing anything for my decision point, but like maybe he just stays out there and he runs that just to get a little bit of extra time out there. I went 22 minutes. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he closes. Like if he plays well, he could very easily play 28 minutes today. The availability of those minutes is there. Not that I expect it. Zach Pinnell, final question for us before we're going to bounce. Set the super chat in. Any Davion Mitchell love on DraftKings?
I have him in one of 50 lineups right now.
I have one as well. Unless
the
he's
price
starting,
tag drop.
He's got to be starting for me to like feel good about it.
Yeah, so I will say
good about it then.
Yeah, like coming off the bench at 4,400, it's good enough to, get in a lineup here or there. If he starts at 4,400, it's still Davion Mitchell, but it is worth noting that salary's come down like 10% from where it was initially because he came off the bench last game. So if they were to be like, hey, we're going back to Davion Mitchell, I would certainly like him a lot more today than I have at any point since De'Aaron Fox got hurt.
Well, that's going to do it, folks. 9 games in the books. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Enjoy the rest of your night. Don't forget to hit that like button. Adam and I are going to get out of here. You guys get 90 minutes of NBA Live Before Lock. Make sure you're signing up at Owner's Box. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe, and we will talk to you again later.
My friends, it's time for NBA Live Before Lock. Heading into the weekend, we've got a Friday 9-game slate, and we're talking once again about the in-season tournament here. Matt, you and I have been talking about the in-season tournament, which takes place on Fridays. What difference does it make to the games? Absolutely not, but it's NBA DFS. Nonetheless, just treat it as regular NBA season games. As you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Owner's Box, who are sponsoring the show today. They moved back the lock of their slate from 7 p.m. Eastern time to 7:30, which is going to do a couple of things for us. Number one is we could spend some time on the post-lock show talking about Owner's Box, building out lineups for them. And then in addition to that, if you guys haven't signed up at Owner's Box yet, there's a couple of perks when you sign up. If you do it right now, they are going to give you 2 $15 free tickets to tonight's contest. So that is definitely something to take advantage of. And then also they have their deposit bonus offer up to $500. So if you sign up at Owner's Box now, you're really getting a lot of value, and you can still play on DraftKings FanDuel, then wait the 30 minutes, enter some Owner's Box lineups in afterwards. Matt, what is going on? How was your week?
Week was pretty good. Nothing eventful, which is always good around here. Excited to get out here and talk this slate with you, which is a fun Friday nighter. Been waiting for like these 9-game slates. Wish it were a couple games less, but you know, we all have to deal with the same garbage.
Did you happen to see the issues that have come up because of the NBA tracking and the new courts they're using for the in-season tournament?
Are you speaking about like in Dallas?
So it's been happening kind of across the league, but so the NBA has this new tracking system that the teams are using for their advanced analytics.
I did not hear about this.
Okay, yeah. So teams are using these cameras for tracking systems, and that's how they're basically getting all their data. They're using it to get game plans and to like really do in-depth scouting on players using in real time, cameras leading to additional data and information. The colors of the new courts screwed up the cameras to where teams were not able to develop scouting reports based on the games that have been happening on the in-season tournaments, all because of the colors of the courts.
That's amazing. And I know like maybe this is a related note. I saw that Dallas is not going to have their court, painted or whatever because they couldn't get it under regulations in time. So I bet those two are go hand in hand.
Could be. And I mean, the other thing too is we know Dallas, a team that's run by Mark Cuban. I'm fairly sure, somebody who hired Harold Bob Vulgaris a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure they're an advanced forward-thinking analytics team. And I'm sure for them, they were probably like, hey, we want this data and information. And maybe there's some way for them, they're finding out it screws up with that. So yeah, there's been all kinds of issues with this NBA camera data tracking, which was not only been an issue because of the in-season tournaments, but apparently it's like screwing up teams scouting, and there are people who are like losing their jobs over this. So this is a whole thing that's going on with the NBA. So in-season tournaments, if you guys like the courts, I did think they looked different visually than what we're used to, and there was some appeal to them, but then I read this story and it did make me laugh.
I think the cherry on top is I'm of the opinion the courts were hideous for the most part, really, really ugly. I know I heard JJ Redick talking that he liked a couple of the courts, and sure, you can make a couple exceptions, but just so funny to me that they put this together kind of last minute too. So no surprise that it's backfiring, at least in some ways.
Yeah. So I thought like the Thunder court, the OKC court looked cool.
That was one of the ones he said.
Yeah, the red courts looked terrible because it was awful. Like red and then darker red, and they were miserable. They were an eyesore. But either way, we've got tonight's game with all new courts to look at for the NBA in-season tournament. If you guys have not done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions for us over the course of the show, I see we've already got a couple of super chats that have come in. And if you are a Stochastic member, at me in Discord so I can answer your questions. I just grabbed my phone because it was behind me and I realized I didn't have it there. So at me, and I'll pull up those questions. We'll be answering them as we go. But let's start with, actually, Jacob, do you know when these questions were for the last show and when they were for this show? Because I know the one from Ace of Spade. That's okay, cool. So I'll start with Ace of Spades question, and we've got the one from Ace of Spade. One's directed directly to me, so I assume that's certainly one that's for me. But Ace of Spade first asked us. Sorry, Jacob, can you mute yourself? My bad. Ace of Spade left us a super chat. He said, best options for DK tiers. And here, Ace of Spade, I will go tier by tier for you to give you all of my best options. And here I've got lineups run out for tiers. Tier 1 for me, that is going to be Luka Doncic. Tier 2, LaMelo Ball. Tier 3, Anthony Davis. We are now assuming that he's playing today. Tier 4, Desmond Bane. Tier 5, Kyle Kuzma. Tier 6, Şengün. Now, Şengün is questionable to play. That's the big injury news for the slate that Matt and I are going to be getting into in a little bit. For now, the answer for me is Şengün, and I think he's a very good-looking, potentially low-owned contrarian option people aren't going to be getting to. And then if he's out, it's going to open up all kinds of value. So I actually like having Şengün in lineups as a placeholder right now because I think he's going to go under-owned. And then if he's ruled out, I've got lineups with him. It's going to be really easy to swap and get to other people. So right now, it is Şengün for me in tier 6. If he does not play, I would say Fred VanVleet is the best option in tier 6. So thank you for the super chat, Ace of Spade. And then another question from Zachary Pinnell, who asked me, am I still doing UFC videos every week? Unfortunately, now I have NBA shows to do every night, which cuts into my available time to do other projects like UFC, which I really, really love doing the UFC content. I just don't have the time for it in my schedule anymore. I do football show at Lofty in the morning. I've got meetings in the afternoon. I do the basketball show at night. So it's going to be coming back, but it won't be able to be until basketball ends, or maybe once football is over. And then I might have more free time in the morning after weigh-ins. But for now, temporarily on hold because of my available free time. We got Jacob Roach. All right, so we're all caught up on super chats. Thank you guys very much for asking those questions. And now, Matt, what are you doing with Alperen Şengün today? Because he's questionable and is the only real key player on the injury report right now.
So I think that your thought is correct, and that people probably won't be getting there because he's got a tag. Our tools have him coming in with quite a bit of negative leverage, though. So I'm a little bit torn on what to make of that. Maybe that questionable tag is partly built in there, and his projection might rise if that tag gets taken off. We'll have to wait and see. I like him here. I think all the Houston guys look a little bit over-owned, him being no exception, but they all look good. So I don't think they're bad plays. None of them, to me, are like guys that I think you have to lock in, though. Do you see it differently?
Sort of. Because here's the reason why. Number one, if we go into the slate starting, which I assume is going to be the case, we're locking 48 minutes from now and Şengün is still questionable. I assume he's going to be lower on than what his current ownership projection is. We just see that happen all the time if players are questionable. And then that totally changes the dynamic of is he over or under owned? Because I'm assuming he's going to come in a little bit lower on than his ownership projection. Now, I could be totally wrong on that. We could find out 30 minutes from now he's in, and then people are like, all right, cool, playing Şengün. Then I might have to alter how I'm viewing him. Or maybe people just are assuming Şengün plays and they leave him and they end up rolling with him. But what I think is most likely to happen is he goes lower owned than what his ownership projection is. And then another thing that I think could happen, he might not play today. That's obviously very live to happen also because he's questionable. And it is very important to me that I have the flexibility in my lineups to get to Houston value if Şengün is ruled out in that case. So this is one of these situations where it kind of has to go beyond some of the data in my decision-making, because it's always hard when you get these players who are questionable, and something else as well, particular to this slate, the value sucks. So if we could get, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought and then I'll hop in.
I was going to say the value sucks today. So if Şengün is ruled out, the Houston value becomes the best value spot on the slate by an absolute mile. Not even close. Like there's nothing on the slate that I think would be remotely close to Houston value if Şengün is ruled out. So that's why I think the best way to create upside for me is to have placeholders in my lineup so I am able to swap in the event he gets ruled out.
I think that's a fair way to think. I'll counter, though, that I don't necessarily think the Houston value that emerges is so great. Now, your point on there being absolutely no value on the slate is well taken. So there aren't really other guys like close to 3K that will look like Jeff Green, for instance, who could potentially be starting. That said, it's still Jeff Green. We don't know how many minutes he's going to play. He's been in this spot countless times and hasn't produced. He'd look like a great point per dollar play. Don't get me wrong. I think you're right in that assessment. I don't think any of the guys are like campaign from last night, if you will, though, unless you get Landale starting. But he was out of the rotation last game, so I'm a little bit skeptical there. I don't disagree with you per se, but I just don't take it quite as far as you do. But I understand why you do.
So here's where I'm going to disagree with you. I think Tari Eason starts if Şengün is out and Jabari Smith slides to the center, because this is what they did last year when Şengün missed games. They threw Tari Eason to the starting lineup. Jabari Smith started at center. Jabari Smith was a better fantasy producer as the starting center. And Tari Eason, if you remember last year, he absolutely just smashed in some of those games.
Well, that changes everything.
Well, that's what I'm assuming happens if he's out.
My only question to that would be, I know Tari Eason was on a pretty strict minutes limit last game. I doubt that that's going to be increased too much in his second game. So I think you're right. He becomes a good point per dollar play. For me, the guy that kind of stands out now, and I think only looks better, is Jae'Sean Tate. Just because you take one less body out of the rotation, they're going to play a little bit smaller, as you're kind of alluding to. It puts Tate even more in the mix. So I do agree. Like, it makes all their guys look better. And if Tari Eason starts, you got to assume that they're at least going to play him, 6 minutes in the first quarter to close the half, and then kind of the same thing in the second half. So you'd hope he'd play around 20 minutes at least. And at his price point, I think that makes a lot of sense just because of how good of a producer he is.
And we just got the starting lineup from the Nets, which is going to be important for the slate because I know a lot of people were looking to play Day'Ron Sharpe today. And we just got the Nets starting lineup, which will not have Day'Ron Sharpe. And if you remember, Matt, you and I a couple of weeks ago were doing this show. Sharpe looks like the best value play on the slate. Doesn't end up starting in that game and ends up playing like 3 minutes or something like that. So we just got the Nets starting lineup. It is Spencer Dinwiddie. It is Mikal Bridges, Royce O'Neal, and then it's Johnson and Finney Smith rounding out the lineup. So Cam Johnson back in the starting lineup for the Nets. And then we've got Finney Smith starting at center. What are you going to be doing with Day'Ron Sharpe, who, when we saw the Nets shorthanded the last time you and I were doing this show, he did not smash it. It looked like he might be able to.
Definitely not playing him here. I think he looks good from a leverage standpoint. So if you're playing a lot of chalk, he makes sense. If you're multi-entering, he certainly makes sense to have some of, but I'm skeptical of him. Like, they don't really like playing him. This is a really tough matchup. He'll be in the rotation probably, and maybe he plays some garbage time, but he's not cheap either. I'd rather have the lineup spot open and for sure play Dwight Powell if Lively's out along with Kleba. So I don't love Sharpe. Like, I understand why he's in play just because of the lack of value on this slate. And speaking of that lack of value, and kind of to your Houston point, one team that I haven't heard mentioned like at all as far as this is regarded is Memphis, with Zaire Williams being questionable. This is a team that's already really, really shorthanded. Memphis stinks, and I think they're really no good right now. But they're in a great spot against Utah at home. They're already missing a ton of guys. Tillman's out, Konchar's out. We know Ja is out. Other guys are out. I can't even think of who they are. And I think you could see guys like potentially David Roddy, maybe even like a Kenneth Lofton get some run. And I think those guys are sneaky, and just having the roster spots available to make some pivots is worthy on this slate.
By the way, we're talking about Zaire Williams. People are
He's
getting
awful.
a little confused. Yeah, we're talking about Zaire, not Zion Williamson. No. We're talking about Zaire from the Memphis Grizzlies. So I do understand where there could be some confusion there. Not Zion Williamson, Zaire Williams. Different player, different team, and one is also better at basketball than the other. By the way, this is also going to go, I agree with you. And this is going to go to my other point about Şengün and the Rockets. Do you know what time the Memphis Grizzlies game locks?
Yeah, 8.
It locks at 8. The exact same time as the Houston Rockets game. So this is like the time slot that I really think we want to be reserving some lineups.
I agree. I already am with you there. I do think that at least now you've put it into the ether that, like, because I was kind of under the assumption that it was going to be Green Orlando. I still think it probably will, but at least you have me thinking that it might not be. And basically anyone else in that starting 5 becomes viable. So I'm with it.
Yeah, and that's also one of the reasons why I ran my lineups through the Sims, and I did give little boosts up to players from Memphis, to players from Houston, because this is the time slot I want to have my lineups reserved for. I wish I could confidently tell you guys I know who's going to be in, who's going to be out today, but I don't. And because none of us know, that is kind of what creates some of the leverage and some of the value on this slate, is being able to late swap once we get into, like that post lock, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Matt and I are going to be sticking around from 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, building out some lineups and walking through the news. But there's going to be stuff that happens that's unforeseen. Well, I'm not going to say unforeseen, but there's stuff that we just don't know as of right now, where we're going to have to fill in those gaps. And something related to that, before we go too far past the injuries, I also want to ask you, because you brought him up there, if Derek Lively doesn't end up playing, is there anything you're really going to be prioritizing from Dallas?
Yeah, that was on my mind, so I'm glad you brought that up. I think Powell becomes a great play, and I think Derek Jones Jr. becomes a great play. Both these guys have been priced up from like the minimum 3K, but everyone has. So getting them at 4K when they could easily both play close to 30 minutes I think is a really good look. If Powell is starting with no Kleba or Lively, and Kleba's doubtful, so I don't think he plays, I think he becomes one of the best value plays on the slate, personally.
Got some questions coming into the Discord channel, so we'll hit on these and get caught up on them. First is, Zaire Williams just ruled out. So we'll answer these questions, and I assume we're probably going to be getting a projections update by then, and then we could circle back and see how the projections update for the absence of Zaire Williams. So Zaire Williams now officially out, and don't confuse him with Zion Williamson. Different players. This is like Bizarro Zion Williamson.
Yes.
We'll call him Zaire Williams. All right, so questions here from Just Locks. He's saying best sub 10% owned FanDuel GPP play. Did you build lineups for DraftKings and FanDuel today, Matt, or just one?
I did.
Okay, so I'm going to look through the lineups I've built here and see which player I had the most exposure to. Sub 10% owned. Okay, sub 10%. That is Dyson Daniels for me. Dyson Daniels, $5,100. Now, he's only projected for 2% ownership. That's something that goes into this equation here. But yeah, super low on Dyson Daniels. I think he's somebody who we can get overweight to the field to. Do you have an answer? Sub 10% owned on FanDuel, GPP dart.
Yeah, a guy I like on both sites that is not getting any love on FanDuel is Tyrese Maxey.
I dig it. Tyrese Maxey on FanDuel is...
I like him on both sites. He's one of the rare guys that's like more expensive on FanDuel, so he's getting zero love there. I like it as just a spend up to be contrarian. The pricing is a lot softer on FanDuel today.
$8,800 only projected for 2% ownership is Tyrese Maxey, so that is going to be Matt's contrarian play there. Next question, Gangrene wants to know about DK tiers. Yeah, we'll go back in a circle onto the DK tiers, where I had in tier 1, Luka Doncic, tier 2, LaMelo Ball, tier 3, Anthony Davis, tier 4, Desmond Bane, tier 5, Kyle Kuzma, and then tier 6, Şengün, if Şengün is out, Fred VanVleet. The next question here is from Jets World, who wants to know top 3 or 4 cash plays on DK today. Top 3 or 4 cash plays. Okay, so if we're looking at cash options, I'm going to say one of them has to be Rudy Gobert. I'm underweight to the field to him in tournaments, but he is so popular that I think he is definitely somebody we're going to want to look to in cash games. Mike Conley, another one. Mike Conley is going to be really, really popular in cash games. Two players from the not from the Utah Jazz, formerly of the Utah Jazz, got tripped up there playing against the Utah Jazz. Now on the the Timberwolves going up against the Spurs. So good matchup for them. And then also a spot where neither of them are expensive. $4,800 for Conley, $6,800 for Rudy Gobert. So I'm going to call them 2 cash game guys that you should have. I think you should have Kyle Kuzma in cash. He's my favorite play from the early games. There aren't too many guys I'm dying to play from the early games because I want that later value, but Kuzma is one of them. So I'll say those are the 3 guys I think you should have in cash games. Kuzma, Gobert, Conley. Anybody else you would add to that list is like a must play in cash?
Kyle Anderson's on the cusp, but just because of his price tag and ownership, like I don't think you necessarily are dying to roster 3 Timberwolves, but pricing matters. Like pricing is the end all be all, and all 3 of those guys look like the top. Those 3 are the top ownership, projected guys on the slate with Kuzma like right there. So I think it's those 4 guys. Jaren Jackson looks good. I think Gobert is the number 1 guy and Conley's the number 2. And then, there's kind of a group you can look at. So yeah, we see that similarly for sure.
Next question here is from Kapanikella. He said, glad that I'm back today. He wants to know who's the one guy that I'm playing in a single entry. So we'll say that right now my single entry lineup does have Tari Eason in it as a placeholder. If we're going outside of him as somebody who I think that we should be playing, I'm gonna go with Tari Eason for now.
How many minutes do you think Eason plays?
Starting. Oh, what's that?
If he starts, how many minutes do you think Eason plays?
Like 26.
Okay, well then he becomes like the best play on the slate for sure.
That's what I'm expecting if Şengün is ruled out. Now we'll see if that ends up not being the case. But yeah, that's about my.
Are you not worried at all about his minutes restriction?
I mean, he's very cheap. He's $3,800 on DraftKings. He's a really good points per minute fantasy producer. So, I mean, right now it's not even like I have him with like some kind of crazy projection. He still shows up in some lineups,
Fair.
But it's more so the range of outcomes with him, right? And we might go into the game and they'll say he has a minutes restriction, but what does that what does that mean, right? Do they say he's only going to play 22 minutes? Because if he starts and plays 26 minutes, that's still somewhat restricted minutes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just under the impression, I haven't looked too much into it, that he was on like a strict 15-minute limit last time out. So I just don't know if they like want to extend that further. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll feel differently if he's not starting, but
For sure.
you know, we don't have that information just quite yet. But for you, who's the one guy you would say go ahead and play in a single entry tournament?
My favorite play on the slate, I think, is Desmond Bane. So he's going to be my guy. Our tools love him. I love him personally. This is a great spot for him, coming off a awful spot against Miami where they just did everything to stop him. Utah just doesn't have the horses to stop him. So I like Bane a lot at 8,500 on DK. He's my guy there.
We do, by the way, also, I was going to say Desmond Bane for me, he's in 40% of my 150 lineup. So I also like Desmond Bane quite a bit for tonight. The champ 0824 for DK Cash, Derek White or Kevin Huerter. That is Kevin Huerter for me. Do you have a preference? And then Jacob, if you wouldn't mind, can you pull up the player compare tool so we can just throw that up on the screen to get a visual for that based on the projections on the site? But Derek White or Kevin Huerter as a cash option, Matt?
That's really, really close. I think it's Huerter also, but White's 300 more and is projected for a little bit more. So based on projections, if you can get to White, I guess, but it's such a slight difference that I think you just play who you want there.
Yeah, very, very close. Very, very close. And Jacob's got the player compare tool up on screen there. And then Einsteinium says, are the Wolves chalk? Well, it doesn't say. He's asking us. He wants to know, is the Wolves chalk better than the Memphis chalk? I have more exposure right now to, actually, it's pretty split for me. I think it's like different case by case because there's certain pieces of chalk that I'm overweight to from those teams than other pieces I'm underweight to. So like I'm overweight to Desmond Bane. I'm overweight to Mike Conley, but then I'm underweight to Rudy Gobert. I'm underweight to Kyle Anderson. I'm slightly underweight to Jaren Jackson Jr. So it's kind of different case by case. But in general, I would say the Wolves chalk and the Memphis chalk is about equal. Is there like a side that you really prefer?
I definitely prefer the Memphis side personally. I just think they're way short-handed. So like, especially now with Zaire Williams out, the pricing for Minnesota is more favorable, like on paper, because they're just cheaper. You've got guys that are cheaper, but they also run a pretty deep rotation. They're not in as good of a spot as Memphis is at home against Utah. I prefer Memphis, but I certainly see why it's an argument and anyone could prefer Minnesota or not really have a preference there either way.
I think Zaire Williams being out is a fair point to that also. But, you know, it's like, so Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, what are you doing with some of the Minnesota chalk pieces then?
I really don't think you have to play these guys in tournaments. Like they're good point per dollar plays, but I'm really not worried about any of them like being guys you absolutely need. Now, it increases the chances of you needing them based on their ownership, but that only makes me like them less in tournaments. Guys like Mike Conley, Kyle Anderson specifically. Gobert looks good, but he's also eating up a center position. I like, Dwight Powell potentially there. We'll see about the Houston situation. And that kind of is a great segue into a guy I wanted to ask you about that I like a lot that I haven't heard mentioned once. And he's second in our tools, in our boom bust tool, Joel Embiid. No one is playing Embiid here. And I think he's a really, really good play. The concern is Detroit keeping this game close, but if they don't, he's going to smash. And if they do, he's going to smash. So how do you feel about Embiid tonight?
My concern with Embiid, and I have 7% of him, so I'm pretty close to the field. My actual concern with him is that he takes up a center spot that I'm not going to be able to swap to later on in the night if players get ruled out. I'm even with the field. He's projected for 7.1% ownership, and I actually have 7.2% of him is my exact number right now. So I'm holding hands with the field, but somebody who it's hard for me to jam, be like, I want more of them, because I always like having the flexibility on slates like this where there's just not that much value and there's key players that could get ruled out later.
Okay, on that note, what about LaMelo?
Let's see. What am I doing with LaMelo here? I like LaMelo more than I like Embiid. I have LaMelo in 17% of lineups, and something else about LaMelo that he is going for him that Embiid does not is that the point guard position is way more valuable, or I should say the center position is way more valuable. So I have more flexibility if I have a point guard position used as opposed to if I have a center position used right away.
I agree with that. Last guy in this kind of mini questionnaire, Tyrese Maxey on DraftKings.
Maxey, I'm also fairly close on Max here. A little bit underweight to the field, though. I have 6.7% of Maxey. He's projected for 10.3% ownership.
Fair enough.
I'm about to rerun everything. We just got updates for everything related to Memphis, which is going to cause me to rerun everything now. But some projections for the players. If you wouldn't mind, Jacob, just throw up the Memphis players, their new projections on screen. We now have Desmond Bane projected for 46 fantasy points, Jaren Jackson Jr. 45, Marcus Smart 35.94, Luke Kennard now projected for 26.12 fantasy points, Santi Aldama 25.75, and then Bismack Biyombo 24.72. That's like the core of the rotation there for Memphis.
Kennard was a guy I forgot to mention. They need offense. Memphis is really, really struggling on the offensive end. Kennard isn't special, but he's like right now without Ja, he's like right behind Bane and Smart in terms of guys that can like create their own shot and shoot. I think he's going to play a lot tonight. He's a little bit of a liability on the defensive end, but they got other guys to kind of make up for that. They need offense. I like all these Memphis guys. They're already missing so many bodies. I think Roddy, Kennard are two guys I'm going to be looking at hard depending on their starting lineup. And I think Kenneth Lofton is worth like a flyer in tournaments for sure, just because he's a great he's a great producer when he gets run.
Also, with Zaire Williams being out, because he's not really the highest usage guy, I did notice our projections have slightly gone down on Triple J and Desmond Bane. Do these guys take like a little bit of a hit if it's Kennard playing more minutes as opposed to Zaire Williams? Because he is a higher usage guy and Kennard who's going to take more shots.
Fair. I see that, but I also just think their offense is going to be smoother. Zaire Williams took 9 shots last game, was 1-9, really hurt their offense. I think it opens up the possibility for assists. Like you want the team that you have players on scoring. Like it's not always going to be your guy scoring, but I think that just Kennard is so much better offensively than Zaire Williams. It's going to really help their offense if he is the starter there.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't start, though, I still think he's worth getting to.
Oh, yeah. He's one of the best value plays on the slate, in my opinion, as is. He's playing consistent minutes. Great spot for him at home against Utah. I like Memphis here like quite a bit. I think they're just in a really good spot. So I'm with you totally on Kennard. I like all these Memphis guys, and Kennard's my favorite like value piece from them.
Yeah, he's the one who saw the biggest projections uptick from us, now projected as one of the top value plays on the slate. We got him for, 26 fantasy points tonight. That is definitely something that I think that we're going to want to be getting to. And we got a super chat here from Cheyenne. Cheyenne, she is asking us about Biyombo's minutes, and then can we play him and Santi Aldama together on FanDuel? If you're only playing one lineup, my preference would be to not play Aldama and Biyombo together.
For sure, same, just because I think their ultimate upside is eating into each other. Now, Memphis is really shorthanded, so that might not be the case tonight. You could see them playing, together. Don't think that's going to happen. I will say, I think Aldama's really sneaky because people are just assuming Biyombo's going to get the run, and it's a great spot for Biyombo, but they don't have a true center Utah that is. Like Collins playing the 5, even Olynyk. Those are more Aldama matchups, and he was really impressive in the second half of last game. He's a guy I remember from college. He played at Loyola, was by far the best player every game he played because he played for Loyola. Not that that means anything for the Grizzlies, but he's a guy that is assertive offensively. I'm kind of talking myself into Aldama. I know Taylor Jenkins, Memphis's coach, likes him a lot. He's the second highest graded leverage play on the slate right now on DK. So kind of talking myself into it as we speak.
All right, I'm going to rerun my lineups through the Sims now, and I will see how much this changes what I'm getting to from Memphis. My expectation is a lot of Kennard, and then the exposures that I had to guys like Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Biyombo, it's going to mostly remain unchanged, but because we did downgrade, not by a lot, but each of them are projected for 0.2 of a fantasy point less, over the set of 150 lineups, that does slightly lower your exposure, not to anything too crazy or anything like that. So we'll see what that does. I'll know in 15 seconds how much my exposure changes from that Memphis Grizzlies news. But also, as for Cheyenne's question, but if we're comparing Biyombo or Santi Aldama on FanDuel, my preference is going to be Aldama just because of positionality.
Yeah, same. And his ownership has gone up. So now the leverage isn't quite what it was.
Okay.
He's still coming in with quite a bit of leverage. But speaking of leverage, one guy I also wanted to ask you about, kind of in that Embiid train, same position as Embiid. I don't assume you're getting to him that much, but just kind of want to get your overall take on this guy as being really low owned. Anthony Davis.
Let's see. By the way, so I just updated my lineups. I have 84.7% of Luke Kennard. My most rostered player by such a wide margin, Luke Kennard, because I don't have any other player now, even in north of 40% of lineups. I only have a few players who are even north of 30% of my lineups. So Luke Kennard just popping up all over for me. Love getting to Luke Kennard right now. So sorry, what was your question there?
Anthony Davis. Any hot takes or strong takes on him here? Because he's always a guy I'm really, really interested in when he's getting no ownership. And that's the case tonight.
Yeah, not really getting to any of Anthony Davis. He's somebody who I could see myself if Şengün gets ruled out and we get more Houston value. And then also because where he's playing in that later time slot, that's where he's probably going to make it into more of my lineups. Right now, I'm not getting to him.
I could actually see you getting to him, not like a lot, but a decent amount just because of the double whammy of Şengün being out, which opens up value, but also Şengün taking up the center spot and the Houston value not.
Let's see if we had any more super chats that came in, and not at the moment, but we do have some questions in Discord. So I'll make sure that we get to these right now. This one
Lively's in.
Lively is in. Okay. So don't have to update anything for Lively. That's all going to stay the same. We've got Cubby Bear. Cubby Bear Q3 is asking, does Horford being out shift the need for any Boston players? Cornette, Pritchard, Hauser, Porzingis. The Celtics are so deep. Like, if you had a lineup with Porzingis here, they're cool, but there's nothing that's a must-have for Boston. Far from it. This team needs to have like 3 guys out before somebody's a must-play from Boston. That's how deep they are.
Yeah, same. I have definitely no must-plays from Boston. They're all playable in their own right just because of their GPP upside, but no strong stands over here.
All right, the next question that we're getting here is from Clyde. He wants to know, who are our FanDuel lottery tickets of the night? And for me, my FanDuel lottery ticket of the night is Dyson Daniels. And then Matt went with Tyrese Maxey. Anything changed since earlier?
Let me see real quick, just because I always base it on their tools. I like the Dyson Daniels call a lot. Man, honestly, I'm going to say that a guy I like on DraftKings that I shouted out earlier that's not getting any love on FanDuel is Jayshawn Tate. He's still really, really cheap there, and I'm surprised he's not getting any love. He's a guy that can kind of fill up the stat sheet a little bit, so I'm going to pivot off Maxey to Tate.
Okay, so we've got Jayshawn Tate being the guy there for Matt. And by the way, if he ends up being the starter, then I basically what I said about Tari Eason, I feel about Jayshawn Tate. Like if Şengün's out and Tate's starting and we can expect big minutes from him, then I mean, they're about the same price point. Tate's somebody I would like quite a bit. Next question here from Ninja Black 47 says he's hand building 2 $15 DK, somewhat chalky lineups. He's got $6,400 left in utility. He'd like to leave some salary on the table. What does that lead you to? You don't have to leave salary on the table for NBA DFS.
You shouldn't. DFS is so projectable. Like leaving 100 or a couple $100 here and there is nothing because guys are projecting similarly. But it's not like MLB where you could have Mike Trout go for 0 and the 2K guy go for 30. Like in the NBA, what's it called? Just for an example, like the amount of times a guy like Derek Jones is actually going to outscore even like a Karl Anthony Towns, who no one is playing, is like a couple times all year.
Yeah, don't leave salary on the leaving salary on the table doesn't make you contrarian in NBA. It just makes you have slightly worse lineups. Now, like Matt said, if it's different, if there's somebody at 6,200 that just projects a lot better than 6,400, cool. But don't think that you're playing like some crazy good lineup or getting different by leaving $1,000 in salary on the table. With that in mind, my favorite option at 6,400 or lower is Jordan Clarkson today, and he is right at 6,400.
Yeah, didn't really talk about the Utah guys. I like Utah a little bit, especially like with my fondness for all the Memphis guys. So another thing you mentioned, doesn't hurt. They start later. Their rotation that they ran against Indiana makes it so I like guys like Clarkson and Markkanen more because THT is out of the starting lineup. I'm a big fan of who Keontae George is and will be, but he's not like that offensive guy right now. That's Clarkson's role. So I like Clarkson and Markkanen. I think John Collins is probably overpriced a little bit, but a lot of guys on this slate are overpriced.
Next question that we have is a super chat from Sean, who wants us to review the top 5 small forward plays. Yeah, I'll look at my small forward exposure and let's see who I have the most of at small forward. Just have to, here it is. Here's the tab I'm looking for. All right, so I'll filter by small forward in the Sims tool. These are the small forwards I'm getting the most of, and small forward's a shitty position on DraftKings today. These are my 5 most rostered small forwards as of right now. Kyle Anderson, Azur Thompson, Gordon Hayward, Jayshawn Tate, Tari Eason. Those are my 5. So I actually do have Jayshawn Tate as one of my 5 most rostered small forwards.
I like Jayshawn Tate. Oh, the other guy I was going to throw in there would be David Roddy if he starts for Memphis, but we don't know yet.
Makes sense. Next question is Jake Lindland says Sharp projects well, but he scares me. Who is my favorite center on DK? My favorite center on DK right now, the one I have the most exposure to is Gobert, but I am underweight to the field on him. Relative to ownership, the current center that I'm the most overweight to is Şengün, but subject to change based on what happens post-lock. And just to reiterate, if you guys didn't hear what I was saying before, I think Şengün is going to end up going a little bit lower on than what his ownership projections are, just because he's going to be questionable heading into lock. And I like having that flexibility to move lineups around should he be ruled out. So my most rostered center is Rudy Gobert. But with that said, currently underweight to the field on him. He's projected for 30% ownership. And then Şengün is the one I'm most overweight to. Who's your favorite center overall, Matt?
That's a really tough question, especially now with Powell like out of the equation. There's a bunch of good plays. There isn't really anyone like I love here. I think if you can get to Embiid, he's by far the best center play on the slate. Really hard to get there though. We have to wait on the Şengün news. I definitely don't think it's crazy to play like a power forward center at center tonight, depending on the Şengün news. Gun to my head right now, I'm going to say in cash games, Gobert, in GPPs, Embiid. And speaking of GPPs, wanted to ask you about one guy here if I got a second.
Sure.
Just kind of like speaking on like a game theory's perspective, Jordan Poole, he's not a guy that projects well, and his minutes projection is pretty low. But I'm not sure I'm buying that. Last game, they played their second unit a ton in the second quarter because they got hot, and then the game blew out. He's seen blowouts in a bunch of games recently. Now, they're facing Charlotte at home in a game with a close spread, really high total. The projections are very down on him. I get it, but I still think he certainly has, 45, 50 fantasy point upside on any given night. And this is certainly a night where he could hit it. Like, not really speaking on a projections level is what I'm saying. Like, you feel that at all?
About which player again?
Jordan Poole.
So Jordan Poole, it's funny. I actually did place a bet on Jordan Poole right before. This is going to speak a little bit to his upside. I placed a bet on Jordan Poole just like right before the show started, 8-1 from to be the highest scoring player in that game. It's a number where you are not going to have very many, unless they're playing like the Warriors or a team that's actually legitimately like really good. There are not going to be very many Wizards games this year where Jordan Poole is going to be 8-1 to lead the game in scoring. So I do think there's upside in Jordan Poole. As far as how much I'm playing him in DFS today, though, like I think that he's somebody to take tournament flyer shots on, but he's not somebody who's like important to my builds at all.
Fair enough.
Let's see what we have next as far as questions go. We've got Jay ask. So 2 J's. This threw me off. I looked down. There's a question from Jay and a question from JEW. JEW is asking how much sharp am I getting to on FanDuel and DK? So I built dummy lineups for FanDuel, but just one of these slates where I knew I was only going to be able to play on one site. So I'm only updated for DK, and I have 17% of Day'Ron Sharp. And we already found out that he's not starting, so I don't think that's going to change for me. 17% is probably going to be about my final number. How much Day'Ron Sharp are you getting to, Matt?
None. I'm only playing a couple lineups, so I'm not playing Sharp here. I just don't really think that they want to play him. Not sure that he's going to necessarily play over Trendon Watford. I think both of them kind of cancel each other out for me. that's not to say that neither of them, especially Sharp, doesn't have upside. Just not where I'm going.
Next question that we have in here is from the other Jay, who's asking us for Lakers Suns showdown. Yeah, what we'll do, so post-lock show, we'll build lineups for Owner's Box. They are sponsoring the show today, and a good place to go and play over at Owner's Box, especially if you sign up right now. They're going to give you two $15 tickets so you can use in tonight's contest, which locks at 7:30 Eastern time, not 7. So you got 45 minutes still. And also, there's been a lot of overlay on Owner's Box this year, which is another good way to get value. And also, when you sign up using the link we have below, you are going to get up to a $500 bonus on your first deposit. So we'll build lines for Owner's Box and also for Showdown tonight once we get to the post-lock show. Next question that we have in here is from Hef Love. Last man in on DK, $5,400 and under. Should it be Kevin Huerter? Let's see, $5,400 and under. Who's the guy I like the most? I think that's Kevin Huerter, but I don't know all of the players' pricing off the top of my head. It is Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter, if you got $5,400 in salary available. What is your answer, Matt? $5,400
on
his
DK.
Price point. Yeah, DK, $5,400 utility, so it could be anybody. Who would you go with?
I am going to say that's a really tough range right there. Probably Huerter also, just because no need to spend down there. So Huerter.
All right. Now the next question that we have, by the way, Maxi Kleber was just ruled out, so not going to really impact our lineups all that much, but just some information for you guys to know Maxi Kleber. Tim Lee wants to know any update for cash cores. Update for cash cores. Yeah, let's see. Luke Kennard is definitely one of the options. No doubt about it. Luke Kennard. I would also say that you still want to be playing Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley in cash games, Desmond Bane, Kyle Kuzma. I'd say like that's cash core. A lot of Memphis guys in cash now. Desmond Bane,
sure.
Luke Kennard, Gobert, Conley from Minnesota. Yeah, and then I'll say Kuzma from the early game. Anybody else you call like a must play in cash?
No, it's all going to change once we get the Sengun news and like the Memphis and Houston starting lineups, because that is just going to change a lot. So I do think right now Kuzma is probably the best cash play. I do think the best overall play though is LaMelo Ball. Like he's projected as one of the best points per dollar slates on the slate at 10K coming in with leverage. Like give me all of that. I know that, you know, the 10K is a price jump, but he should be higher than 10K in this spot with no Terry Rozier. Like, I can't even believe I'm now like that I was even questioning playing him or not. He's the best play on the slate in my mind.
I have a 22% of LaMelo after the update that we got for Luke Kennard. Because what ends up happening is, you know, once Kennard ends up making into lineups, I got salary to spend on some other spots. So LaMelo is somebody who ended up getting to more of. So 22% in, at least as of right now, I think is going to be close to the final iteration of my lineups, just pending that Sengun news that we've got right there. But we've got the next question coming from Mincash Merchant, who says that you know that guy's user is JEW, right? That guy's user? I don't even know what he's talking about. Then last man in on DK 4K, stuck between Tari Kispert and DJJ. So between Tari Eason, so I only like Tari Eason if he's starting, right? It's a very, very specific situation that I'd be looking at Tari Eason. Corey Kispert, not interested in. Derek Jones Jr. Did I take any punt chances on Derek Jones Jr.? So Derek Jones Jr. So I'm going to say Derek Jones Jr. for now. And then if Derek Jones, and then if Eason starts, Eason. But or else the answer is going to be Derek Jones Jr.
I'm with that.
Next question is from IC50. If Sengun is out, who's the play? Whoever starts in his place. Could be. I'm expecting to be Tari Eason. If it's not Tari Eason, then I don't have interest in Eason if he's not in the starting lineup. Jayshawn Tate would also really stand out. Then also when it comes to the Houston Rockets, there is going to be so much other value on the Rockets. Because if Sengun's out, it's not just whoever the direct replacement is. It's like there's more usage for Fred VanVleet. There's more usage going to Jalen Green. Like everybody looks better. Sengun's played a ridiculous role for this team, like usage, rebounding, assists. The ball's in his hands constantly. everybody looks good from Houston if Şengün is out.
Amen to that. I was literally just going to say that. And I don't think Şengün plays. Do you know if he came back last game after he sprained his ankle?
I don't think he did, but I also don't remember. I have to pull up.
It was a blowout.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
A lot of times these ankle sprains like get worse in a day. You know, they swell up, etc. I don't know. Like, I really have no way to know one way or the other whether he plays, but I'm kind of thinking like he probably doesn't play. Like, if you ask me what I thought, it's that he doesn't play personally.
Oh, you know what you're going to like? If I had to guess, I think he's more likely to not play than play, which is one of the main reasons I've been reserving lineup spots with him in them, is just so I have that there. You're going to like this, though. My best projected lineup actually does have, so my highest projected ROI lineup, it does have Joel Embiid in it.
See, there you go. And like, he's second in projection on this slate behind only Luka. Like, there's just so few game scripts here where he doesn't smash. Like, basically the only one is if Detroit is just so bad they don't score. And like, you know, that can happen in any game, but Detroit's been feisty recently. So in Detroit, like, yeah, Embiid looks great here if you can get here. I think LaMelo is a little bit more of a priority for me just because the pricing, the position, and the projection being so similar.
Yeah, so let me pull up the lineups I just uploaded. I'll see what my final exposures ended up being to Embiid and to some of these other guys. So I didn't get to a lot of Embiid, but I do currently have him in my single entry lineup. So there is that, but I do have over 20% of LaMelo Ball.
Respect.
Next question is coming to us from nobody. We are all caught up on questions now. Really quickly, Jacob, would you mind? Can you pull up the lineup generator? Let's just build some lineups for people heading into lock. Maybe somebody doesn't know how to react to all this late news. They don't know what to do with it. And what we could do right now is we'll throw some lineups up on screen. If you guys want to sign up for the NBA lineup generator, there's a link for that below. This is the most affordable tool we have over at stochastic.com. And it's also the most beginner-friendly tool that we have because it's going to build the lineups right for you, and you can upload them directly to DraftKings and or FanDuel, up to 20 of them wherever you're playing. So right now, we'll just build some lineups heading into lock, and we'll see what ends up showing up. And like the final iterations of everything that is here over at stochastic.com. Let's do a contrarian lineups though, Jacob. With this being, you know, close to lock, I'm interested to see what shows up if we do contrarian. So let's do contrarian. We'll do it for DraftKings, and we'll do it for FanDuel after this. And just run through and see what ends up popping up. Don't lock anybody in. We'll just skip this part. And then save 20 lineups, and then we'll look at what the exposures are. I'm expecting a lot of Luke, even contrarian lineups, I'm expecting a lot of Luke Kennard. All right, so we'll save.
Yeah, we have him projected for 26 fantasy points now.
Yeah, I mean, he's in 4/5 of my lineups.
Yeah, makes sense.
Let me make sure I uploaded the
I will say, though, one thing about Kennard that changes this slate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned before about the center position. Guard position is now really valuable, with a lot of guys only being point guard or shooting guard eligible and forward being so weak.
All right, we got lineups built here. All right, nice. Our most rostered player here over on DK. And were these DK lineups? These are FanDuel lineups, right, Jacob? It looks like FanDuel pricing. Okay, so these ones are FanDuel lineups, and then we'll build DraftKings ones up right after this. So this is with FanDuel pricing. We're getting to a good amount of LaMelo Ball. He's in 60% of our lineups. The thing that really stood out to me, what made me realize, like, oh, this has to be FanDuel, is we got Jordan Hawkins in here. He's in 45% of lineups. He looks much better on FanDuel than he does on DK. We are getting to Jayshawn Tate in about half of our lineup. So Jayshawn Tate, clear value play on FanDuel, especially if Şengün doesn't end up playing. Luke Kennard making into 40% of lineups. So at the top, you'll see the guys who are really projecting best for. Oh no, this is. Wait, is this FanDuel or? Because wasn't. Oh, I guess these are DraftKings lineups. Yeah, never mind. Because LaMelo 10,000 there, and Dyson Daniels 51. So those were DK lineups. My bad. I think I missed. Yeah. All right. Easy enough. I'm just going to blame Jacob. Not my fault. You guys can't even see Jacob. He might as well take the heat. So anyway, those were some core guys for DraftKings. Build them out for FanDuel now as well, Jacob. And we'll throw that up on the screen. We'll see what we end up getting to as some core plays for FanDuel purposes. Players that end up showing the most in the lineup generator. Also, always important when you're building lineups in the lineup generator or contest generator to not be a donkey like myself and Jacob. Make sure you know you're selecting the right site when you're going and building them. Yeah, go contrarian for FanDuel as well. And then we'll see what ends up showing up. By the way,
what else too?
Yeah,
and I was just going to say, to your point on Houston and like Van Vliet, so true. It also makes the New Orleans guys look slightly better. Like Sengun's a big body in there. Zion, J-Val, they're not going to have anything to contend with. And McCollum's still out for them. So Ingram's back, but McCollum's out. I think Zion is sneaky in tournaments, to be honest.
Yeah, well, on FanDuel, he's fairly popular.
He's cheap.
Yeah, he's too cheap on FanDuel. On DK, he's another one of those guys. Like, I don't have very much of him now, but if we get that Houston news, he would end up making into more lineups, especially because we're going to have a scenario where, you know, we're already like, we already have LaMelo is going to be locked in the early going. Joel Embiid's going to be locked in the early going. So then it's like, which other spend up options do I get to in the event that we get the value that opens up from Houston? And yeah, that would certainly be somebody who makes more sense.
What are you going to do with Jeff Green if he's starting?
Play a little bit of him, but not all that much.
Sure. But I still think if Sengun's out and Eason's not starting, he's still worth playing. You saw it last game. He played 14 minutes and got 25 DK points. Like, he's not a lock by any means, but value is really hard to come by tonight, as you mentioned. I would doubt that he plays any less than 15 minutes. You know what I mean? He probably will see at least a little bit of an uptick. So I think he's in play either way. Just much more of a flyer if he's not starting.
FanDuel core options here for FanDuel purposes. I saw a LaMelo Ball at the top, Jordan Hawkins. It's funny. So I went through that before where I said, like, oh, we made a mistake. We had LeBron, and then you pull up, it's like, oh, we had the exact same two guys in the same order on DraftKings and FanDuel. But beyond that, then we're getting more of Kelly Olynyk on FanDuel. He's cheaper over there. Also, the power forward and center eligibility is much more favorable than just the center eligibility that he has on DK. Gordon Hayward showing up here. Luke Kennard, just an important play on both DraftKings and FanDuel tonight. Luke Kennard. So those are your core plays for both sites according to the lineup generator. And if you guys want to sign up for that, it is a very affordable tool. $15 you sign up for it. It is going to build lineups just like you saw. It is that easy. It makes them for you. And these lineups are also based on simulation. So check that out if you guys just want lineups that are built for you. Now let's double check and see what we have as far as questions go heading into lock. No super chat, so nothing there that we missed. And then in the Discord channel, also nothing. So guys, don't forget, next 30 minutes, don't go anywhere. If you do, shame on you, but make sure you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel before you head out. But Matt and I are going to be looking at the owner's box slate, which, by the way, looks like it might overlay tonight. It's only about halfway full. So if you want to take advantage of some overlay, go check out owner's box, only 50% full. That slate's going to be locking in 30 minutes, and Matt and I will build lineups for it in the Sims tool right here on screen. So we'll go position by position after building some lineups, and we'll see who's really rating out as the best overall plays in the Sims tool after we go through our process with the tools. But Matt, we're approaching lock right now. Is there anything about your lineups that might surprise you that you didn't think was going to be the case a few minutes ago?
Not a few minutes ago, but probably before the show started. I didn't think I was going to be prioritizing so much of Memphis, Houston, like at least for my lineup spots, because I want to see the news. And because I do think that there's a chance some of these early guys are a little bit overowned. I'm not playing the Philly guys. I like them, but you can't play everyone. I think LaMelo's a really strong play, as we both talked about. And then I want to see what happens with Houston and Memphis' starting lineup, because a lot can change based on that.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, the big thing is like, I didn't think coming into the show that I was going to be having, Luke Kennard in 4/5 of my lineups,
Sure.
But at the same time too, like I had Zaire Williams as a talking point on a run sheet about a player who's questionable we want to talk to. But then you kind of get, this the slate actually happens and players get ruled out. Sometimes you build your lineups, you don't foresee you're going to get as much of them as you ultimately end up doing. So that's why for me, I had, 4/5 of my lineups ended up with Luke Kennard there. By the way, people are in chat are very upset we didn't talk about Herb Jones. I mean, he was expected to be out by me at least the entire time, and it didn't really change anything.
No, it doesn't make me like a guy like Zion any less, though, just because, like, we've seen Zion, like, a big limitation with him has been his, like, the amount of minutes he plays. Played 37, even in, like, blowout conditions against Denver. If you get anywhere close to 40 for Zion, he's a smash.
Yeah, but also I came into the show with Herb Jones not in. So
yeah, fair.
Him being ruled out also didn't change anything for me. So to me, it is basically very, very minimal impact on how I'm looking at the slate as a whole. And then even before it started, that's why if you remember when we were talking about contrarian plays, I brought up the top. I like Dyson Daniels. He's only projected for 2% ownership, at least in part. That was because of Herb Jones not expected to be playing. We do have the starting lineup for the Celtics. It is Holiday, White, Brown, Tatum, Porzingis. But let's go ahead now and look at Owner's Box, because Owner's Box we do have supported in our contest generator and Sims tool. And now also, if there's anything that ends up happening over the course of the show that changes, we're going to react to that as soon as it happens if we end up getting that Şengün news. But for now, we'll build some lineups for Owner's Box. We'll build them in the contest generator. We'll pull them up in the Sims tool, and we'll see what ends up popping up here. Do you have those ready to go, Jacob? If you do, just throw them on screen. We go position by position and see what is popping for Owner's Box. All right. If you guys haven't checked out Owner's Box, you get up to a $500 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up, and they're going to give you 2 free $15 tickets to their flagship tournament tonight, which is the 20K fadeaway, only about halfway full. So go check that out if you guys are looking for some overlay. Let's look at the guard position. So the way that the positions work on Owner's Box, for people who are not familiar, there's guard, there's forward center, the front court players, and then there's utilities. There's a lot of flexibility here where you kind of just play the guys that project the best. You don't have to worry too much about the positions. So with that in mind, that's why you'll see like, hey, Jordan Hawkins making into 92% of our top Owner's Box lineups, followed by Desmond Bane at 76%. Malik Monk is in 36.7% of lineups. Is he somebody you really got too much on like DraftKings or FanDuel, Matt? Was he somebody you thought of?
No, he's not. What's interesting about him, though, I took big notice of this. On the last slate, I think it must have been Wednesday night, he was really, really low owned on the main slate, but very, very high owned on the late slate. That speaks to just like the difference between those two slates. He ended up having a really, really good game. So he's certainly interesting at that price point, but not a must for me. Price has risen a little bit. You're kind of paying for his upside, knowing that there's real downside in there.
Yeah, he's also only $4,500 on Owner's Box. So super, super cheap price point for him there, which one of the other reasons we're getting to a lot of them, whereas somebody like Luke Kennard on Owner's Box, let's see, we're not getting to much of Luke Kennard. So what is Luke Kennard's Owner's Box price? Because I'm not super familiar with all the prices off the top of my head, but Luke Kennard is, it would help if I spelled his name correctly. Kennard, interesting. So even at $3,800, not getting to a ton of Kennard, but I guess that's what ends up happening on something like Owner's Box, where, you know, Kennard, even though we have him projected here for, you know, pretty decent 24 Owner's Box fantasy points, he still doesn't make it into a ton of lineups because you have players. He's like priced comparably to Malik Monk, which is something where we have Malik Monk. Just scroll up a little bit, Jacob. What did we have Malik Monk projected for fantasy point wise? Malik Monk was, so Malik Monk projected for 29 fantasy points. So you got this scenario like Malik Monk is much more expensive on a site like DK than he is on Owner's Box. And then here it's like Malik Monk or Luke Kennard. And we do have Malik Monk projected for, 6 more fantasy points. So something like that where he comes in lower owned in our top lineups on Owner's Box. But the core plays here, Desmond Bane, Malik Monk, Marcus Smart, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, Jordan Clarkson. Those are the guys we have over 20% of over on Owner's Box. Let's go and look at the forward/center spots, Jacob. We'll see what he ends up looking like, what ends up looking good for the forward and centers. All right, forward, center. Yeah, there we go. Biyombo making into 86% of lineups, followed by Day'Ron Sharpe at 30%. Biyombo must be like close to min price over here. Let's see. Biyombo's salary is, he's $3K over on Owner's Box. So you got Biyombo's salary is not moved. Min price over there on Owner's Box. So that's why he looks really good there. Biyombo, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Brandon Ingram. We're also at Day'Ron Sharpe in some lineups there, 30%. So lots of forward/center options to be getting to that project really well. Biyombo makes the most sense. So like if Biyombo was min price on DraftKings, he would also be somebody who would just be mega smash play of the day. He's solid at 4,900, but not the same as if he was 3K.
If he were 3K on DraftKings, he would probably be the best play that we've seen to this year up to this point.
So I've only played one showdown NBA slate this year, Matt. The most tilting experience in my NBA DFS season so far, because I did it on the first Biyombo slate, which if you remember how the news broke for that night, it was Tillman starting. And if you play showdown, you get a lineup, like that's the nuts. If you get a lineup change 10 minutes before the slate starts, like people are not going to react to this news. This is amazing. This is going to be the best thing ever. So I'm jamming Xavier Tillman into lineups, thinking like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have such a great night playing showdown. Slate starts, I get even more excited. Tillman, nobody played Tillman. Nobody saw he was starting. And then what happened shortly after that? Not only is Tillman not starting, Biyombo starting. All right, knife in my back. I don't feel great about it. Then we get the next tweet shortly after, and also before the game starts, that Tillman is not playing, which was just overall super annoying, the entire process of the entire thing. So that's the only showdown slate I've played. Point being, Bismack Biyombo's salary has not changed on Owner's Box since that game from a week ago. Go ahead and play Bismack Biyombo at the flat min over on Owner's Box. Really, really strong option to be looking at there. And still, contest on Owner's Box only halfway full, so definite spots to fill there if you guys want to go and check that out. But here's something else I want to do, because we got a question from Jay in the Discord channel. We'll circle back on Owner's Box. We get a little bit closer to the lock, but Jay left us a question in Discord. He wants us to build some lineups for the showdown contest tonight. So Jacob, for DraftKings tonight, build lineups for the late showdown contest, which is the one between the late. So build lineups for Lakers, Suns, and then sim them, and we'll look at the results. And then in the interim here, we've got a question from Justin. So Just Locks wants to know Triple J and Gordon Hayward or James Harden and Zion. Oh, so we asked that like 30 seconds before lock. So Gordon Hayward's already locked. My answer would have been Triple J and Hayward. Harden's not somebody I got to today.
On FanDuel, he's at least in play at 7,700, but that's about it.
But even then, when I was building lineups, I was underweight to the field to Harden.
Yeah, I would have been too. So it makes sense.
What do you make of the Clippers going forward and how we could expect the usage to shake out there?
I really don't like this move for them. Like, I just don't know who James Harden is anymore. I get it. Like, he can still be productive when he has the ball, scoring and giving assists, but he's certainly not a guy like you can rely on the defensive end. They already have too many guys that need the ball. Like, I think they went too far with this, we need stars. Like, I ultimately do not think it helps them. I think they gave up too much in terms of picks and capital and all that. I'm not a fan. How about you? And I used to love Harden, like coming out of Arizona State, was a big fan. He's a hard guy to root for at this point in his career.
Yeah. So I mean, it could certainly cause chemistry issues, but on the other hand too, I think it's a reasonable upside play because if you look at what they gave up very, very minimal to get James Harden there, right? They didn't have to give up Terrence Mann. They gave up some pieces that, they gave up Nick Batum, who's somebody who had been valuable to them. But I think the upside of James Harden being in there is going to make them better in the long run. At the very least, it gives them more upside. The problem for the short run is he's just integrated into this team on the fly a week and a half into the season. The chemistry is going to be terrible. In the short run, these next few weeks, they're not going to be anywhere near what their potential is. But for a team that has championship aspirations, I do think it was a good move for them. The probability of success, I think, is fairly low, but their odds of winning a championship, tell me if this makes sense. Their odds of winning a championship.
No, I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say their odds of winning the championship went up while their odds of a first round playoff exit also went up.
I totally agree with that. I do think that again, it doesn't really matter, especially for this team, sold the farm a little too much. Like they don't have a first round pick for years. And I know that they weren't counting on that anyways. And I do agree with you. Like ultimately, if they want to beat Denver's the best team in the West. They probably weren't going to do it with the roster they had constructed. So adding a guy like Harden does increase their upside. I just think not even the chemistry issues, because I think all these guys will get along. Just, I guess there's only one ball argument. Like, he is a talent upgrade, but when you have Kawhi and Paul George, who I think are better than Harden at this point in their careers, like, just really hard for me to see how he's going to make that impact. But I completely agree with you. Like, in the NBA right now, you have to take an upside swing. They did that. It probably won't, like, bite them in the ass too much, because they'll still make the playoffs. And I do expect them to at least win a first round. But I agree, man. Like, I think their chances of getting upset early has risen, along with their championship aspirations.
Yeah. So somebody in the chat saying Jokic is better than anyone on the Clippers by he's better than everybody in the NBA by Jokic is the best player that we have in the league right now. So, that's not really anything that changes there. But yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with the Clippers. I think the probability of success is super low, but there is a ceiling there. Let's go ahead and look at Jacob. Do we have the lineups done for Showdown? We could pull those up and look at them. Let's look at lineups. We'll give people what the number one overall lineup is right now for Showdown that we got to in the Sims, and we'll react to that. So if we go to lineups, here's our number one lineup by projected ROI, which is nearly impossible. I made a mistake because it's nearly impossible to read on my computer, but it looks like, and I'm going to do my best. Anthony Davis, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic. Sort by ROI. Yeah. The simulated ROI. The projection is just the fantasy point projection. Anthony Davis, Grayson Allen, Nurkic, Durant, LeBron, and who was the last one? Okay, and Yuta Watanabe, final spot. So it is, I don't know how it comes across to you on your screen, Matt, if you pulled up on like YouTube via everything else going on, but it ends up coming up pretty blurry for me on my screen trying to look at everything. So hopefully that was able to get through to everybody. Now we'll look at some of the individual player exposures and see what it is that we're getting the most of at each position. Or actually not each position, because there are no positions we have to worry about for Showdown. We'll just look at the players that we're getting the most exposure to, and hopefully that helps Jay build out his lineups here. But let's see what we have in here for the most rostered players over on the Showdown site. All right, so we've got Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron. How many minutes are you expecting from Beal tonight, by the way, Matt?
Like 21 last game, probably 25-ish.
Yeah, we've got him projected not all that highly. We've only got him projected for 29.97 fantasy points, which feels fairly modest, and that's enough to get him in over 50% of lineup. So I get a little concerned about the minutes restriction, but at the same time, too, I mean, that's still enough to get him into a good amount of lineups here. D'Angelo Russell, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Scroll down a little bit, Jacob. I want to see who the most rostered captains are. I see the most rostered captain we got to is Anthony Davis, but I want to see who's on here beyond him. Captain that we're getting the most of, who is not Anthony Davis, LeBron James, making it into 23% of lineups. See if there's any lower owned or kind of cheap options we got as captains. Because yeah, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant. Wondering if there's any cheapies that people can get to. All right, so if you're going to one of the non-studs, Austin Reeves and then D'Angelo Russell are the other two that we end up getting some exposure to. So hopefully that helps you guys build out some lineups for Showdown today. Thank you for the question, by the way, Jay. And if anybody else has questions, you could certainly throw those into Discord and we could answer them. Other questions that we have here. Yeah, we've got a couple in here. We have Hippo is asking us third leg. That's me, third leg, Greg. Who do you put in the DK utility spot with $7,800 left? I'm pretty sure that's Şengün as of right now because he's 77. All right.
Yeah, I think it's Jaylen Brown or Şengün.
I wouldn't do Jaylen Brown just because he's about to lock, and it doesn't seem like we're going to have that Şengün news in the next 15 minutes.
That's fair.
By the way, the later the Şengün news comes out, the lower owned the Rockets players are going to be. And this is a situation now that with this 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, game locks in 45 minutes, whether it's Şengün or it's Rockets value, everything is going to be under-owned in this game. Because I can't imagine that many people are going to play Şengün if he's ruled in at this point.
I agree.
7,800. Yeah, that is going to be Şengün for me. Then we've got K Thumbs. Any thought on News God change in rotation news? I don't know what that is referring to. This is like multiple questions we got in the Discord channel today that I don't know if somebody is fucking with me or if it's related to something else that I don't know, but I can't reply to you. I don't know exactly what it is that you're referring to. Like him controlling which team's rotation does he control? Mr. Lee wants to know, is Derek White a good play on DK and MME tournaments? I don't think I got to very much of Derek White. Let's see, we've got 15 minutes till that game starts. I have Derek White. You know what? I take that back. I do have, oh wait, no, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong set of lineups. All right, my final set. Did I get to very much of Derek White? I have a feeling that's a no. I have 13% of him. He's in there, but no, he's not really any kind of priority for me. I'm not going to say he's unplayable because I have him 13% in my mass entry. And then he says he's got LaMelo Ball and Embiid lineups in the utility spot 5,700. Okay. So if you have 5,700 left, then yeah, go ahead and play Derek White. I'm cool with that. But he's not somebody I'm like jamming in. We got a question before. I think you might be playing the same lineup as the guy before who's asking for 5,700 and had the choices between Kevin Huerter and Derek White. But yeah, if you have 5,700 left, go ahead and Derek White makes sense there. Einsteinium wants to know, with Maxey out, is THJ a viable option from Dallas? Tim Hardaway Jr., is he somebody you're playing?
Not really, no.
I have Tim Hardaway Jr. in 3% of lineups.
Like, I don't think Kleba being out does anything for him. Kleba's been out a bunch recently.
Yeah, so I don't know what my exposure was before, but I think this is just like what happens when you're building 150. Like, you're just going to have some random guys that make it into like 3% of lineups. He exists on the slate.
For sure. For me, it's more that like Kleba is doubtful. It's more like that Lively's in is the big change.
True. Yeah, like I don't think this had any impact on my lineups at all. Next question that we have here is from My Amada. My Amada says, I think he's talking about the change in rotations for the Clippers via Ty Lue, saying he's going to change it up. Oh, okay. So I see what you mean. The Clippers said they're going to change the rotation up. Here's the problem. It's not the Clippers changing the rotation up. It doesn't mean that like James Harden doesn't play. It doesn't mean that Kawhi Leonard doesn't play or anything like that. It means these ancillary pieces, like it could be like Terrence Mann plays more or something like that. And those are just not players that I'm prioritizing today.
Yeah, 100%. We just don't know what that means, but it's not likely that it means anything really relevant from a DFS perspective, to be honest.
Yeah, let me see if I have any exposure to Clippers players who are not the guys that we like really give a shit about. Not really. I have one Norman Powell lineup. I have 2-man lineups. I have 3 Zubats lineups. My most roster player on the team is 7% of Kawhi Leonard. There's nothing that can make me be like, I need to play Bones Highland or PJ Tucker today. And those are like the role player guys.
I think soon enough we'll start seeing, with the lack of ownership on these guys and the prices decreasing, at some point, maybe soon we'll see these guys be playable, but we're not at that point yet.
But anyway, thank you, Maya Mata, for following up, because I didn't know exactly what it was you meant, but hey, we got it. Maybe News God does control the rotation. We could ask him what he thinks there. Fantastico says, who do you pivot off of Şengün for DK? Good question. If Şengün does not play, who is the player that'd be like the direct pivot in the same price range?
I don't think there is one. So you have to have a couple spots in your lineup that you want to change. I don't think this is you play X instead of Şengün, because I think that guy is Jaylen Brown or Porzingis, and those guys lock at 730. So for me, I don't think there is one guy like that. I mean, I think if you're willing to, leave a little bit of salary on the table, it makes more sense. I mean, like the only other guys there is Harden. Like, yeah, I don't know. How about you?
Yeah. So to me, there actually is an answer. It's Fred VanVleet for $200
okay.
less. If you have Şengün in your utility spot and he's ruled out, Fred VanVleet is somebody I want to be swapping to. He's going to be projecting better, $7,500. I do think that's a pretty easy swap to make, assuming that you have that spot available. If not, and if you only have the power forward center spot, then you're probably going to Chet if you have $100 remaining.
Yeah, for sure.
Utility spot though, that's an easy answer for me. I'm going to Fred VanVleet. Next question here is back of the futures. It says, what was the first thing you bought last week when I won 100? I don't think I bought a single thing since. I made a joke on Twitter because I'm having some work done on my chimney that I bought a crane because there's one sitting in my driveway right now, but I didn't actually buy the crane. Matt, I know you're somebody who's had a number of big hits in DFS. If you guys don't follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips, you should be doing it. You're missing out if you're not following Matt on Twitter. Is there anything like crazy you've bought after having a big DFS hit?
Nah, it's all about saving money for the most part, even though I've done a pretty shitty job of that recently since I haven't had one of those big wins in the past little while. So you know how it goes. You got to save it, give it most to my wife to put away. We're looking for a new house sometime soon, so we'll go towards that. I got her a new car like a few months ago because her car was like on its last legs. Funny story. Now, I don't even think I've ever told you this, but so my wife and I had the same car. We got them at the same time, and hers was like literally on its last leg. She was talking to me about wanting to, sell it and get a new car. She went to CarMax that day, and that night, car got stolen out of our driveway. So yeah, it was my fault. I had left the keys in there, so it wasn't like they.
Yeah, it sounds if you want to get rid of the car, it sounds like somebody did you a favor.
Yeah, amen. So CarMax was offering a decent price, but insurance paid like $8,000 more, which obviously helps a lot. So you said it best. Sometimes better be lucky than good.
Do you have an alibi for that night?
I don't, but well, I do. My wife, but I don't know if that counts. It's funny. She saw it happening. Like she looked out the window. She's like paranoid like that. Is always looking out. She was like, "My car's getting stolen." Said, go back to sleep. Like, what are you even talking about? And then, of course, it turned out to be true.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in that scenario, I'd be like, my car's getting stolen. Like, it would be a different
right?
turn. It would be a different tone.
Trust me, we have had not fights about it, but like talk. Like, I think it's such a good thing that happened. She's like a little bit scared because someone took her stuff, and like I get that. I also had my car stolen in college when I lived in New Orleans, and it was a complete fiasco. So I remember when that happened the first time, I freaked out and was, nervous, etc. But once you kind of deal with it, like getting your car stolen is really not the worst thing in the world if you have insurance, of course.
Yeah, I mean, if you just lose your car, and you don't have insurance, then
you're right. You're
disaster.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, I guess I'm biking to work for the foreseeable future, or else, yeah, not really all that. Not all that terrible situation. But I mean, yeah, so for me, probably kind of similar to you where like, you win DFS. And it's also, all right, so if you play DFS full-time, which I've been doing for a long time now, DFS, sports betting, you just know along the way, you're going to have some big hits. You're going to have some downswings as well. And it's just kind of part of the deal. The only person I know that's like really, really terrible that I'm friends with, that's like horrific at managing their money is Adam Scherer. Adam wins a GPP, he will immediately go to the strip club and spend like $20,000. He's the worst man, the worst word, like just anti-stereotype Adam Scherer. He's the worst money manager I've ever seen in my entire life. He goes and that's how he will go and blow his money, or he'll go out on a date and spend like $2,000 on sushi. So he does, crazy stuff with his money. But that's why people like Matt and I own houses with the money that we made playing DFS, which that's also for me, like when I used to win, I would put the money away and that was what I ended up using to buy my house with. But like, it's not like I win and then immediately have to go spend the money on something.
No. Yeah. Especially like you said, when you're playing DFS full time, like, that you've put a lot into that win. Like certainly I've definitely had times where like, I had a bunch of wins in a row and like, splurged on a little something, but never anything like too crazy at all. Because you have to balance it out because the losses, when you don't have one of those wins, you need a big bankroll.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like you'll go through some of these spots where it's like, oh, I just won like twice in a week or something like that, which happened to me to open up the NBA season. Then you go other times like I haven't won a tournament for a month. So yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs that come with it. By the way, the easiest way to make money at DFS, you take advantage of overlay, like what's available over at Owner's Box right now, because Owner's Box has their contest is, let's see, 72% full. So getting there, but still there's Still spots available over on Owner's Box. And don't forget that when you sign up using that link we have below, you're going to get two $15 tickets for this contest totally for free. They also have a deposit bonus available. So here's something you guys could do right now. If you want to sign up at Owner's Box, you could deposit just $15. You're going to get the deposit bonus match, but you're also going to get two free tickets. So you could play, especially for a lot of you out there, if you're just somebody who plays one lineup or just plays for like low stakes or anything, pretty good value for right now. You could just deposit $15, get two $15 free tickets. So for $15, you're going to get three lineups that you could play in that contest there over at Owner's Box, which is looking like it's going to overlay. So something to go ahead and take advantage of. And that is going to be locking in 4 minutes. So I'm going to make sure that I get some lineups built for that as well. What's going on in the early games here, Matt? Because I see some people tilting. Who's going well?
LaMelo Ball is not doing well, I'll tell you that.
LaMelo's playing poorly. Tyus Jones has 8 points. That's pretty crazy. Pretty quick points there for him. We've got Isaiah Stewart in foul trouble for the Pistons. By the way, we're talking about what happens if the Pistons just can't score the basketball against the 76ers. We didn't come to the conversation of what happens if the Philadelphia 76ers can't score on the Pistons, because the 76ers have only been able to put up 11 points and we have 5 minutes left in the first quarter.
Yeah, pretty crazy there. Embiid not off to a great start. LaMelo, like you said, I'm not too worried about those guys. Certainly you'd rather have them like start off hot, but I think I was talking about this with Eric last night or last week. Like DFS scoring, especially in the NBA, not especially, but in the NBA is not linear. Like, yeah, you want your guys to do well every time they're out on the court. But if a guy ends up getting, let's say, 45 fantasy points, it's not because he got 15 in each run he had. Usually it's because he got like 25 and then he had like a 5 spot and then he had a 10 or whatever. It all balances out. So sure, I'd lower LaMelo's projection right now for tonight given this shitty start, but I still think he can make up for it. At least I'm hoping so.
By the way, Michael Dolan in chat saying that he didn't get the $15 tickets. They're supposed to credit your account. So go ahead and message the Owner's Box support, but they are supposed to be crediting you with $15 if you make a deposit using our link below. The only thing I would ask is it possible you didn't use the link? Because they are supposed to be crediting your account. Let's see. I'll try messaging right now. Yeah, it is supposed to be credited to your account immediately. Just make sure you sign up with the link that we have below when you're signing up for the first time. And if you don't get them right now, I'm also going to make sure that you get $15 tickets that are good for next week. So hopefully that they're able to at least, because I know there's only 2 minutes left now. We're also, if you don't get the tickets right now, they can be used for other contests. It doesn't just have to be for today. But apologies. It should be working though. Can anybody confirm that they did get it in chat? That will be a negative. All right, messaging support here. So Matt, what are you tilting right now? What from these early games is something that could be ruining your lineups for today?
LaMelo Ball, sucking right now. So I hope he makes up for it. I still expect him to. He's a guy that can go off quickly, but not the best start for the 10K player right there.
Yeah, very shitty start for Joel Embiid. Very shitty start for LaMelo Ball as well. Very low scoring games in the early going, and very soon we have the Houston Rockets should be ruling out Şengün sometime in the next handful of minutes right here. So hopefully we end up getting that news. But also, if you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Michael Dolan, go ahead and message support. They told us that if you don't get credited the tickets immediately, message their support and they'll get them added to your account. If you don't use them tonight, it's okay. They're going to be good for other slates as well. So it's not like you are shit out of luck there. They're going to make sure that they're added. Matt, any final thoughts on the slate here before that we log off?
No, one guy that's playing really well, Asar Thompson, and he's like 10% owned in I don't know, I think like the 203 entry max. So he needs to chill.
Let's see. Oh yeah, Thompson, 4 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 blocks. So one thing that is a little bit annoying is I think before the Zaire Williams, I had like the Zaire Williams news. I think I had like 30% of Thompson. And obviously I did not end up with that in the end.
That is a smash score in the first 8 minutes of the game. Doesn't mean it's going to continue, but yeah, he's filling it up right now.
All right. That is going to do it for us today, guys. One more time, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope you guys have a great night. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday. Peace out.